You are listening to Fox Radio 910 and 104.3. I want to welcome you to Let's Talk About, our weekly radio program sponsored by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia. My name is Linda Balentine, the president of Crowning Touch and your host for this series. I interview local characters, service providers, politicians, teachers, entrepreneurs, and business professionals, and each one is dedicated to improving life in our valley. Every person has an interesting perspective to share from all walks of life. So, let's begin today's interview. All righty, today we journey into the powerful history of Roanoke's African-American railroad legacy with Darnell Wood Sr. He's the vice president of the African-American Heritage Train, N&W, and Norfolk Southern Group. We're just going to refer to you as the Heritage Group, Darnell.
Okay, great.
As we explore the 20th century, we're going to uncover how the railroad industry not only fueled the local economy, but shaped Black culture, particularly here in Roanoke, the community, and an opportunity right here in the Star City for a whole bunch of folks, countless families.
Yes.
From hard labor to hard-won progress, this is a story of grit, pride, and resilience that still echoes through the tracks of Roanoke's past. Thank you so much, Darnell.
You're more than welcome.
For coming on in here.
You're more than welcome.
And let's just kick this off by finding out what kind of ties you've got to the railroad industry. They 40 years worth, right?
Yes. So it actually goes back a little bit further than that. I grew up in the Hurt Park area of Roanoke.
I know that area.
And the Schaefer's Crossing, of course, we lived on 13th Street, and Schaefer's Crossing was right at the bottom of our hill.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And we could, when these old steam trains and passenger trains used to come by, you could set your clock in the mornings by the time the steam whistle went off down at Schaefer's Crossing.
And that was a nice sound, because anybody that ever was really close to it, didn't most people really appreciate that?
They did. And you could actually, so early on, I'm talking about when I was 5, 6, 7, or 8 years of age, the railroad was right at the bottom of the street for us.
That's right.
And when I lived in Southwest. So it was there from the time I basically was a little child until the time I actually was employed and retired from Norfolk Southern.
So right at the very beginning, you knew not to play on the tracks.
Very dangerous place.
It was real life.
That's right.
Down there.
Very dangerous.
Isn't that something? Well, what inspired you to become involved then with the Heritage Group?
Well, I like I say, when I retired and came back to Roanoke, I actually was one of the speakers at one of their early engagements, the Heritage Group, which at the time was railroaders who had retired and some of them had not retired, and they wanted to keep the history of African Americans in the railroad industry going, especially within the Roanoke Valley. So the mission statement was to promote the preservation of the history of minorities within the rail industry, celebrate the contribution of minorities within the rail industry, and work with and develop youth to become better citizens of our community and of the world. Early on, as you was coming up, the railroad industry, especially in Roanoke, because Norfolk and Western was the corporate office or the headquarters for Norfolk and Western Railway. Coming up, you'll see some of their older men, Alfonso Holland, Colonel Swain, and those persons, they were not able to become managers of any particular office in Norfolk and Western. Back then, African Americans were pretty much relegated to doing clerical work. And when you say clerical work, it's not being in an office as a secretary. Right. Back then, clerical work, you was designated as a clerk, but you was actually cleaning floors.
Isn't that something?
Back then. And don't get me wrong, they paid good money.
Yeah, they did.
The railroad industry, no matter what job you had with the railroad, it paid very good money, had very good benefits. Yeah. And you probably saw a lot of the African Americans who worked at that time. Basically, they lived a little bit up close to the middle class at that time in Roanoke.
It was a great opportunity. I mean, what would have been better?
Yeah, exactly right.
It was a great opportunity for everybody.
That's correct.
It was a great opportunity for everybody.
That's correct.
But it made a huge difference to the Black community.
It did. It allowed them to home ownership.
That's right. Huge.
Allowed them to purchase vehicles. Allowed them to actually pay for their kids' college tuition.
Which people are having a hard time even doing that now.
Exactly right. And that's one thing. When Norfolk and Western left Roanoke, some of that left with Norfolk and Western.
Sure.
When it merged with Norfolk Southern in 1982 and the corporate headquarters moved to Norfolk, Norfolk and Western used to be the largest employer of people in Roanoke, the Roanoke Valley area.
Sure.
And when they left and then they took the corporate community, when I say corporate community, that's the corporate office of Norfolk and Western to Norfolk,
Right. Some
of those people left. Some of them decided just they didn't want to leave the Roanoke Valley.
Right.
Then you had another transition when they moved it from Norfolk down to Atlanta, Georgia, with the Norfolk Southern headquarters. Again, a lot of those people didn't leave. And some people kept their homes here in Roanoke, although they transitioned or they went to Norfolk and also Atlanta. They still kept a home base here in Roanoke, Virginia.
Yeah, I know, because Crowning Touch moved a lot of them.
Right, exactly, right.
We moved a lot of them, the lawyers and just lots of other people that, were in management.
Yes.
What was the exact moment of transition between when we started calling Norfolk Southern?
When it actually moved to... when it actually merged with Norfolk, when it actually merged with Southern Railway. And it was because you had really three different mergers. You had...
it's hard to track.
It is. You had Norfolk and Western to move to Norfolk. Then you had Southern. Then, of course, they brought out the old Conrail, which was up north, the northern states. Southern Railway was pretty much southern, Norfolk and Western right in mid-Atlantic states. And then you had Conrail, which was up north. And you merged all three of those. And you had people that hired out with Norfolk Western kept wanting to call it NNW.
That's right.
Southern Railway historians still wanted to call it Southern. And Conrail wanted to say Penn Central or Conrail, but it finally merged. All of it came together in this Norfolk Southern Corporation.
Well, it's a good thing because you were driving the collectors crazy.
Exactly right.
I mean, even now, you're picking up something that's an N&W lantern, and then but it's Norfolk Southern, and you're trying to, you got dishes from the N&W, and then you've got. It's hard for everybody.
It is, and if you go down to the Virginia Museum of Transportation, they have some pretty nice displays of Norfolk and Western.
They do.
Memorabilia. And the thing is, like you said,
not as much Norfolk Southern.
No, because people want to hold on to the N&W. Norfolk and Western, they want to hold on to the Southern, and also they want to hold on to Penn Central, and not necessarily Conrail, but Conrail as well. And those types of items, they hold on dearly. They don't want to let them go. They're pretty much artifacts they keep for history.
Now, let me ask you a question. When they merged, the merge meant adding tracks. Correct?
That's right. Added more territory.
Did that create more opportunity for people working in the railroad? Or if you were a conductor, did that mean you were going to be traveling further away? Or did they already come with their people when they came with those tracks from Ohio and other places?
It added some other territories to it, but you also had people like if you worked out of Roanoke, you had the Radford Division, the old Radford Division that ran from Roanoke to Bluefield, West Virginia, and the Bristol, Tennessee. Crew Division ran from Roanoke down to Norfolk, Virginia. But when they expanded those territories, it gave you some other opportunities, what they call ID runs, interdivisional runs, and things of that nature. It gave you an opportunity to, while you might be working in Roanoke, it may give you an extra opportunity to take a train from here to Hagerstown, Maryland, and things of that nature.
Now, was there a difference too between carrying freight, and then carrying passengers?
There is a difference in that, and of course now passengers are mainly hauled by Amtrak. And the railroads are pretty much freight, unless you do a steam excursion or something of that nature, which is still not handled by Norfolk and Western or individual railroads. It's handled pretty much by a historical society.
Right. Let's talk just a moment, because I'm just a fan of the 611 and the 1218 and all those steam engines. The last steam engines, like the 611, that was basically a passenger train engine.
Yes.
And that pretty much all ended in the 60s. Maybe it was 90s. So somewhere in there. So there is no longer any engineer or conductor or anybody still around that was on those trains?
That is correct.
Unless they were doing the tourist stuff, which happened later.
That's correct. That's right. There's no, you can't take a freight engineer today in 2025 and take him and put him on this 611. He wouldn't know what to do.
He'd be totally lost.
Pretty much you have a set, at Virginia Museum of Transportation, they have a set certain of people who actually work on it, can operate it, and do those type of things. Back in the 60s, you did have certain men that could actually operate the steam locomotive. and none of them, as far as I understand, were African American.
Yeah.
They would call those. They'll go through the seniority list, and they knew certain persons back then who could run a steam locomotive, and they would use those persons. They would hold them off their regular job and say, "Hey, the 611 of the steam locomotives is going to go on this excursion. We need you there to operate it."
Well, I was at the 75th anniversary celebration for the 611 1218 when they were given their historic plaques and all that other stuff. That was all very exciting. So Darnell, you're telling me that how hot it was inside that 611, even though they were feeding from the tender, they were feeding an automatic feed right into the firebox.
Yes.
And you said that poor, who was sitting there? Is that what you call it?
Engineer and a fireman.
Yeah, they were both in there, trapped next to that big.
And no air conditioning. No air conditioning, anything.
And that was one long firebox, I remember, from my visit during the celebration, because I got to sit in that engine and look, and the front end of that train just seemed to go on forever. That firebox was so long, I was surprised the engineer could see what the heck he was doing, because where he was sitting, the whole nose of the train was way on out there.
And if you think about that now compared to today's locomotives, that engineer is sitting right up front of the locomotive, and he has window view that he can see anywhere.
Well,
but back, if you were on a 611, like you said, the front of the locomotive is so far out of the front, he actually had to stick his head out the window just to see.
He did. So if he hit a cow, he wouldn't know about it till for a minute later. It would take that long for him to pass the cow.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
Well, we were talking about how everything has changed too, and I'd like you to talk about the difference that the technology has made since you were a conductor on the train. There's a lot that's changed.
Yes.
And why don't you go ahead and detail out some of that for us, because it's really interesting, including the loss of the dear cabooses.
Yeah, when I first hired out in 1980, the cabooses were still here. You had basically a train crew consisted of an engineer, a fireman, which was an engineer's helper,
right?
Two brakemen, a head-end brakeman who took care of the head of the train, a rear-end brakeman who took care of the rear of the train, and a conductor. The rear-end brakeman and the conductor rode the cabooses. The conductor's job mainly then was to keep up with all the paperwork when you set off, or when if your train left Roanoke, if you had a bad order. When I say bad order, you had to set a car out for a mechanical failure, something like that. He would have to update the paperwork on his train consist. That's what all's in your train.
And they did all that in the caboose. That's where all the records keeping and all was done.
And when he got to and that from Roanoke to Bluefield, when he got to the other end of the road, he would mark his train consist, give it to the next engineer or the next conductor, who would take the train from Bluefield on, and he also would fill out his paperwork as far as time slips for all the crew members, and that's the conductors and the brakemen. The engineer and the fireman took care of their own, and he took care of all that paperwork. So a few years later, the caboose got replaced with what we call an end-of-train device, end-of-train telemetry device, and they had a HOTD, a head-end-of-train telemetry device on the locomotive. So that HOTD device and EOTD device will communicate with one another. We're talking about technology. It can tell you how much air is in a train. If the engineer reduces brake pressure by a certain amount, you can actually see it on a gauge and how much he reduced it by. So that replaced that caboose.
Right.
And also, when you're talking about replacing that caboose, we got rid of the caboose. Why can't we just get rid of a position? So it got rid of that rear brakeman. Then as time went on, it got rid of not only the rear brakeman, it got rid of the head-end brakeman. And then as computerization got better, now here you are, think about it. Here you are, got an engineer who's done everything with a fireman's helper. And once that locomotive started becoming computerized, that engineer who'd never seen a computer in his life, he has to learn how to operate that millions of dollars worth of equipment by computer. So that took place. And so now you got rid of the engineer's help of the fireman. You also got rid of that head and brakeman. Now the conductor and the engineer are the only ones who are operating the train.
All right. But I understand that the brakeman performed a certain very important function when they were taken and trading cars. And
when they setting cars off.
Who the heck does that if the brakeman's gone?
If the brakeman's gone, the conductor has now started doing some of that work.
I hope he got a raise. Did he get a raise?
They did give him, they got, what they call a reduced crew rate.
Right.
And all that's done by unions. The unions go out and do their contract.
Okay.
So all that was happening.
Wow. What a deal. And so that really impacted your life because you were a conductor.
That's right. That's correct.
Did we finish that story about how you even went from the management? I think let's pick that up a little bit, because that was interesting to me. How you first got on board.
Okay, I graduated I graduated college. I hadn't gotten my degree yet, but in April of 1980, I actually came down and put in an application with Norfolk and Western Railway and for their management training positions. And at that point, they told me they weren't hiring any management trainees. So I then went down to the old RAF division, and put in for a conductor's position, a brakeman's position, and my application was accepted.
Yeah.
So I started out in a union position, a contract position.
Got your foot in the door.
Got my foot in the door, and I kept knocking on the door every 2 weeks. So I went down to the management training specialist and say, listen, I'm still interested in being a management trainee. And every time I knocked on the door, the answer I got were, we're not hiring any management trainees. And, when I started out as a brakeman, all the employees would say, most of the employees said, man, why are you out here? You got a college degree. You could be doing something better. And I like to work. I'm an outdoor type of guy, and I like to work. And I said, well, they're not hiring any management trainees. But later on, I found out they did hire 2 trainees. They were both white. One of them was the gentleman's son who ran that department.
Right.
And the other one, the gentleman who worked in that department, was a graduate of Penn State University. And he had hired a management trainee from Penn State University.
Well, that sort of exposed, the reality of your future there. In other words, when you're looking at that, how did that make you feel?
I tell you,
that's hard not to go sour on the whole thing.
It was very frustrating. One other thing, being that I had also worked on a railroad, they said, well, Darnell, we know you're making such and such a dollar amount right now. When you get hired as a management trainee, you're going to be making more than the management trainees. Of course, that didn't pan out either. I actually lost probably $8,000 a year by becoming I took a cut to become a management trainee.
That doesn't sound right. Do you think that railroad helped unify the African-American community to expose the divisions? Yeah,
I think it did, because all throughout my railroad career, I'm sure some other people do the same thing in other careers. You have always had somebody to pull you up by the bootstrings, so to speak, to get you promoted.
Yeah.
But we as African Americans, we had to do things 5 times better.
That's correct. And that's just pretty much standard.
Worked harder than anybody else. I actually had some of my bosses, if they were in my shoes, they wouldn't be able to make it on the railroad.
Yeah, isn't that something? But so what's happened now? In other words, the railroad has really, really cut back. As you said, now it's pretty much Amtrak in here. I don't know who's hauling the coal. Who is hauling the coal?
It's still the same persons. With technology, now you're not. When I was coming up, you had 125, 130 cars of coal. Now they're doing the same amount of work or hauling more coal with less people.
Yeah.
So you don't need as many employees anymore. And then we talked about interdivisional runs. Equipment has gotten so much better. Back then it would take you 10 hours to run a train from Bluefield to Roanoke. Mm-hmm. Now you can run that train from Bluefield to Roanoke in a less amount of time. So you need less people to run that train. That train can cover a larger space now with better technology and more efficiency of the transportation and the rail and equipment.
Well, West Virginia is still pumping the coal out.
They still are.
And I stood on that the big bridge that goes across the New River.
Yes.
And looked down, and there was a 100-car train going right underneath me, way down, 900 feet down, because I was on that little catwalk, the bridge walk under there, looking down, and understood that not only was all that coal going to China,
yes,
but every car is now worth $250,000.
Every bit of it.
And that was quite a realization to realize that they're running those trains all the time.
All the time.
Matter of fact, they're on both sides of the river.
Yes.
Down to the coal mines and then back on out.
That's right.
That was pretty fascinating.
Yeah. It's amazing, but you look up all that money that's generated. Remember, all those trains used to stop here in Roanoke.
That's right, yeah.
All of them used to stop now. You bring the train down here. It'll start somewhere in the coal fields of West Virginia. That train will run down here. All they do is swap crews, and it goes on to destination down at Lambert's Point, coal piers, or wherever it might be going to, or power plant and things of that nature. So the monies is still there. They're still producing coal. I know we got new types of fuels and things of that nature, but there's still a lot of generation of coal.
Oh, yeah.
They use it.
As a matter of fact, they can't even predict how much is left because there's so much left.
Right.
Speaking of what's left now? What is left to the Roanoke community from the railroad industry? What do we have left here in Roanoke? We have a shop still?
Yeah.
They're just, what are they doing?
Yeah, you're talking about East End. They have shops, but they're not doing the work they used to do.
What are they doing?
They're not hardly doing anything at all. East End shops were, back then, Northeast. Think about the history of Roanoke.
Right, yeah.
Back East End shops, a lot of African Americans worked in East End shops.
Oh, yeah.
And they could actually walk to work.
Isn't that something?
In Northeast. But then, when we went through Northeast and they started buying up all the homes, urbanization and things of that nature, or gentrification, however you want to call it. They put the Civic Center down there in Northeast, and all those homes started to leave. People left those homes. They tore them down, and they started coming to the Northwest or upper part of Northwest. I think that was a starting point of some downtime for African Americans in Roanoke.
What's it like now? You got the healthcare industry that is sort of stepping up, trying to fill in those blank spaces. Is that benefiting the Black community?
It's benefiting as far as jobs, gainful employment. But when you look at the money that a railroader make compared to someone for 2 or 3 lines within the health industry, they don't compare.
So
and
we
the benefits too. The benefits you can't compare.
So we haven't been able to replace what we lost. When the railroad left Roanoke.
No, and I don't. And I hate to say it, but I don't think you will ever replace what was lost.
Can you think of any local figures or legends from the African American railroad community that stand out in your memory when you think about some of the great men that served? Inside that industry. Anybody come to mind?
Alfonso Holland.
What did he do?
He worked down at when I say Alfonso, these gentlemen actually were the ones that spearheaded for me to possibly get into management.
Okay.
They made the ultimate sacrifice as far as working, doing the grunge work, so to speak. But they knew they got paid well and things of that nature. But if it weren't for those persons, Mr. Swain, Mr. Hughes, and those persons, if it weren't for them doing what they did, there wouldn't be any upper mobility. There would be some probably in today's context, but the upward mobility for African American in the railroad industry would have been lessened. We do have vice presidents in Norfolk Southern now who are African Americans.
Wow.
One of the gentlemen I worked with and worked for, Terry Evans, was the first vice president of black vice president of transportation with Norfolk Southern Corporation. And since that time, we've had some other younger people to do that. So they're there. And I guess if you think about it, like I say, the work was hard, but
sounds like there were some men of vision. Alfonso and some of those other guys.
They were.
They sacrificed.
They did.
Because they knew they were in it for the long haul.
That's
for
correct.
The sake of their children and grandchildren.
Exactly right.
And they were willing to, that's a certain kind of precious humility that is really hard to duplicate even in today's society.
Yes. And the railroad industry has changed, some of it for the better, but you had a different type of individual in the 60s, 70s, and 80s workforce than you have today.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And I think that we always try to find people that want to, in our group, we say, hey, are there any young people out there that want a job in the railroad industry? Because we would try to help them get on with Norfolk Southern Corporation. And then no matter whether it's in a trained position or a management position and things of that nature. But a lot of people, young people today, don't want to make that sacrifice. Man, I don't want to work 10 hours a day. Oh, I got to have my weekends off and things of that nature. Right. But I look at it later in life. If you do your due diligence, you get paid well. The retirement benefits are exceptional. And I look at it, just don't look at what I can get today. You got to look at what it's going to do for me in the future as well. And I think that's one of the things that's hurt us, our community, is you just can't go out there and get it all in one hand in one day.
No, and it's not, there is no get-rich-quick scheme.
No.
There's no, chances are you aren't going to win the lottery. And people have actually forgotten that God designed us to do work.
Yes.
And to find joy in it based on the gifts that he gave us. So one of the biggest challenges in life is to figure out what gifts God gave you.
Yes.
And then how you might apply them. And some people are really suited for the railroad industry. And they shouldn't let fear of hard work or fear of leaning into it discourage them.
Yes. You know, and you think about, and I'm reflecting back on coming up, most of my teachers were African American. They went to school to get a teaching degree and things of that nature. But back then, a railroader made, and I'm a railroader that hadn't gone to college. Mm-hmm. Most of the railroaders back then may not have graduated from high school, but they were making a better living than some of the teachers back then.
Yeah, I got
you. And I think, and these men were in church. You know, they put a faith in God.
They were married.
They
took care of their children.
Took care of their children, and I think all of those things were positive things, which built them up in their communities.
Yeah.
And the communities looked upon them as leaders.
Well, we've got another conversation to have, I know, but I just want to thank you, Darnell, for helping us today get to the bottom of the history.
You're more than welcome.
Of the railroad industry in Roanoke. God bless you.
Bless you too.
Welcome to today's special edition of Let's Talk About. We are really honored to be joined by three distinguished members of the Norfolk and Western Railway, Norfolk Southern African American Heritage Group of Roanoke, Virginia. Three retired railroad men who spent their careers working on the legendary Norfolk and Western and Norfolk Southern rail lines. They're here to share firsthand stories of life on the rails, memories from the yards and depots, and the powerful legacy of African American railroad workers who helped shape the culture and industry of our region. Stay tuned because you don't want to miss these powerful recollections from a rich and often overlooked chapter of American history. So I am excited to welcome my three guests today. One of them you've heard from before, Darnell Wood.
Good morning.
And now we have a new guest, Mike Bowens.
Good morning.
And last but definitely not least is Clarence Turpin.
Good morning.
All righty. This is exciting, and we're all going to talk about stories. And let's just go round one more time here. Darnell, I'll just start with you. Give me a little thumbnail. Give our listening audience a thumbnail of who you are and how, your little history in the railroad. Real quick.
Born and raised here in Roanoke, Virginia, of course. After graduating college from Virginia State University, I came back to Roanoke, hired out as a brakeman, conductor with Norfolk and Western Railway. Then I got into management, and I finished my career off in management with Norfolk Southern Corporation.
All righty. Thank you.
2016.
So you've had a front row seat.
Front row seat
on the railroad industry in Roanoke. And Mike, what are you laughing about over there? You've had a front row seat too.
I did too. I was born and raised in Roanoke. And after finishing high school, I went into the military. And after returning from the military, in 1975, I started my career with Norfolk and Western Railroad. I started out as a brakeman. And then when I ended up, I was a conductor, and I did this for my whole career was 36 years.
Wow, that's a long time. So you've seen a lot.
I've seen a lot.
You've seen it change over. You've seen the technological changes. We're going to talk about those later. But actually, you all are going to tell stories. Let's get the last player in our show today, and that's Clarence Turpin.
Okay, when I came back from school, Howard University, I came back to Roanoke. I was seeking employment, and I finally got employed by the Norfolk and Western Railway Company. I had studied computer science, and I was seeking a position with the railroad and computers, but that didn't work out. I ended up getting a job as a messenger in the Treasury Department.
Wow.
Which I spent my entire career in the Treasury Department from the bottom all the way up to when I retired.
So all three of you fellas are Norfolk and Western guys. I think I mentioned when we started that, you were involved maybe in the Norfolk Southern lines. But we got to square that up because you weren't with Norfolk Southern.
Yeah.
You were all with...
Well, it evolved into Norfolk.
Well,
it never did. It's Norfolk Southern now. proper, but it evolved into Norfolk and Western, Norfolk Southern when Norfolk and Western merged with Southern Railway.
Okay,
Company.
that's what you're talking about. All right, fine. Okay, good. I think we're good. And then we might just mention that we're sort of on the cutting edge of some activity between Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So Norfolk Southern was acquired. What does that mean, Clarence? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to the railroad industry?
Well, I think that's been a long time coming. Even when I was employed with the railroad, I had 60 years of time since I was originally employed with the railroad. But I during my early years with the railroad, there was some talk about merging with UP or Burlington or one of those railroads to go coast to coast.
Yeah.
But it never happened for a number of reasons. But that's something been a long time coming. It's coast to coast rail transportation or
does that mean freight or passenger? It's just freight, isn't it? We're just talking
mainly
freight.
Amtrak is running passenger, but it's mainly freight coast to coast.
Okay.
For this entity,
which is a big deal, which hopefully will help keep costs down. And I don't know what it means to the people that are still with Norfolk Southern, and that remains to be seen, and that gets worked out, and sometimes takes a year or two to work out, right? To sort of shift the pieces around, right, Darnell?
Yeah, it'll take at least 2 years by the time Surface Transportation Board and those entities actually vote on it. You got so many things. Mike and I were talking about the unions. The unions are right now really going against it for the safety concerns. You see, and that'll all have to be worked out. But you're talking about mergers. When Norfolk and Western and Southern merged, Roanoke lost a lot.
Yes, it sure
they
did.
lost a lot. They moved the old corporate headquarters from Norfolk and Western to Norfolk. Then, once they finally seen what they could do as far as continuing to be cost effective, they moved the corporate headquarters to Atlanta. And now, if the UP Norfolk Southern, I don't see it. They want to say merger, but UP is a much larger organization than Norfolk and Norfolk Southern is.
So why don't they just say swallow?
Some people will use that terminology.
But you think about it, that's what's going to happen. Intermodal is where where it's at now. Yeah. Coal is not like it used to be.
What does intermodal mean? For people listening, what is intermodal?
Intermodal. What we're talking about is those piggyback, the double stack cars where you see.
Oh, gotcha.
And basically, that's what a lot of Union Pacific has always been strong in that part of. They've always been strong. At first, we weren't that strong in that. We were more strong in the coal part. And what I was going to say too, and I'll say it now, is that years back, before the merger with the Southern, most of the time, what we would say, well, all they hauled is a lot of boxcars. I mean, and what I'm saying is that that's what they did a lot of. Yeah. They did a lot of boxcars and whereas, where when we would kind of cross with other railroads, we'd see, where we hauled a lot of coal. Right. And that's where we started out hauling a lot of coal. That's what it was. I mean, that's where the money was at. I mean, just like the old Virginian Railroad. Right. And that's where it started at, out of West Virginia and everything like it. It was a lot of coal. We went to Norfolk with it. But then as we progressed, and as I said, once they started talking about the South, and then we did get a lot of more boxcars and stuff like that, with their names on it, with the Southern name on it. Right. But, we would use a lot of different locomotives. What I'm saying, UP locomotives, all the locomotives, sometimes we would have different locomotives on our trains there. So now every locomotive you're talking about, the steam series is all behind us. You're talking all diesel now. Everything is diesel. Okay, gotcha. Everything is diesel. Okay. And what we run on. Yeah, that's right.
And, Mike talked about locomotives. If UP, and we talk about intermodal, if you think about
that's right.
Intermodal, mainly you can take a truck container off a truck, put it on a rail car.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you can double stack them. When Mike said double stack, that's when
Yeah.
you take one
that's what
container,
that
put it
was.
on top of another. And if you look at the ports, VIT down in Norfolk, and then you go out west and you see the ports where the longshoremen actually take the cargo containers off the ships
Right.
and put them on rail cars. That's what is at now.
How do they get through the bridges and stuff with some of that stuff, or they just have to reroute themselves around any of this?
They reroute them, but if you go just use 460 or going down towards Norfolk from Roanoke now,
Right.
they've actually have expanded the drawbridges where they've raised them where the ships can go under those now.
Yeah.
But a lot of the container ships don't come inland.
Well, I
They
was
stay
talking about the intermodal stuff
intermodal,
that's double
they-
stacked
they-
on the
they-
tracks. How do they?
They've actually engineered it where they either go through the tunnel, build the tunnel, or actually go through the mountain. They actually cut pathways through the mountains.
So
to
they're
take those
doing that.
double
They're
stacks.
improving the tunnels. They're improving the infrastructure, right,
Yes.
that we used to have.
And that's been going on for years.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Now, over the years, like on the Norfolk Southern, and what I'm speaking of is from Roanoke to Norfolk and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of tunnels that we had to go through.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of, and we call it the Old Virginian line, which goes down through Goodview, Huddleston, Alta Vista. And then we would come out at another line up at Brook Neal, we'd call it.
Right.
So, but some of these tunnels, we had about 6 tunnels. And what they had to do, when our intermodal traffic got so big, they had to go in and
Undercut.
work those.
So
work
they've
those
really
tunnels
done
out.
that. They've done that
Oh, yeah.
already.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
they've
that's been
already
done.
did it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's already been done on our end. But see, that's where and when we talk about the Southern Railroad, what we used to do, we used to take cars down to Alta Vista, and then they had another track which went to the Southern, and we would meet the crew down there. And sometimes we would swap out, and they would take their train on the Southern.
I got you.
But now it's probably better with the intermodal there, because it's north, south, east, and west, and they go all across the country.
That's everywhere. Yeah.
And they have, you talk about if UP brings a train from out west.
Yeah.
and
UP, you mean Union Pacific.
Union Pacific or BNSF, if they bring a train, or CSX, if they bring a train up to us and they swap it, we don't actually change locomotives. Our engineers will actually operate their locomotives on our territory. It's called reciprocal.
Yeah,
so
I got you. Sure.
we get reciprocal locomotive hours from UP, and they do the same thing. When they get trains from Norfolk Southern, they'll operate our locomotives on their territory, and they call it reciprocal engine hours.
All right. Now, for those of you who are conductors, okay, Mike, and that's you, that doesn't have anything to do with freight, does it?
Yes, it does.
Oh, it does.
It does.
Well, see, you're talking, I love this show just because there's a whole bunch of people out there like me that don't know. They think of a conductor and they're thinking of somebody takes your tickets on the daggone, which we don't even take tickets anymore.
No, it's more than just
well,
that.
tell me what a conductor is. Tell me what
we
you
would
did.
have to do is keep up. In other words, when we report to work,
Yeah.
we used to have a list of whatever, all we hauled in our train.
Okay.
And the purpose for that also was if anything happened.
Oh, sure.
Because we hauled a lot of dangerous cargo too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my earlier years, most of the things that we hauled was just at coal, and that's all we hauled was a lot of coal. We hauled it right out of the South Yard, and we'd take it to Norfolk. And I've even been to Durham. We had another line we used to call the Durham line, and we would go to Brook Neal, and but far as the cars, where we could haul 180 or 90 cars all the way to Norfolk, but down on that line, you couldn't haul but 100 cars because it was so much hills, and we'd have to have a pusher, as we said. That was another set of engines behind us shoving. But now they've got them in the middle of the trains. Now, over the years, that's why you can haul longer trains. Some of our trains should be over 20,000 feet long. See, so that's a long train.
Wow.
That's a long train. You'd know it if you're sitting at a road crossing.
Well,
and I've noticed that myself. Hey, since I retired, I said, man, this train is long. And then I used to say, well, and sometimes you get where you can't turn around. You come up, you got cars behind. Yes, man, you got to sit there and wait. But all the people that say that me, and many times as we help people up,
So you've got you. You were a real troublemaker. It looks like to me. Let me.
We have not that much of trouble.
Let me ask you a question. Another question.
Okay.
All right, you're a conductor.
Yep.
You're basically got what I would call a manifest. I don't know what you call that list.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got everything that's on the train.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood from Darnell at the last show
Mm-hmm.
that the caboose
Yeah.
was mainly original. I don't know what else it did. I don't know didn't some people sleep in there, but you also kept your records there, paperwork there. Wasn't it a place where you did paperwork and stuff or not, or what? What was
What it was is, see, at that time when I first hired, we had an engineer, a fireman,
right?
had a brakeman on the head end,
Brakeman on
and
the.
had a brakeman on the caboose.
You have 5
had
people,
a brakeman and had a conductor.
right?
So see, that was a lot of people on the train. But after a couple of years, the fireman part went away on my end. All we had was just an engineer and a conductor. Then you had a.
Why'd the firemen? Let's talk about it. Why'd the firemen go away? What it
was with the firemen? A lot of those guys were older guys, and back then they used to have to put coal in those.
Okay, sure.
In those engines,
right?
But all that was gone away. Even when I was hired, but what it was, those guys had that fireman status.
Oh, I see. So they found other stuff for them to do.
As it turned over, they were engineers. I mean, most of them were engineers.
Okay.
And as it turned over, but as they started to retire and fall, and stuff like down the way, well, they did, no more firemen. I mean, that was something that.
So they
it
let
was
them,
more of a name.
They let them down gently.
Let them down gently.
Which
It was
lots
a
of
name.
businesses wouldn't do. They would have axed them right on out and thrown them away.
Yeah, but as time went on, there, they downsized. So just like with the cab, they downsized. And I'd said something to someone years back. We were talking about the cabooses there, and I was talking to the crew there. We were talking to our crew among ourselves. I said, it's gonna come a time where they're gonna be with just 3 people on the train.
Right.
We'll see. You had an engineer, you had 2 brakemen, and you had a conductor.
Right.
Then it got down to where they got the downsizing. And when I retired, it was just 2 of us on the train.
Okay. Who were the 2?
The engineer and the conductor. And we all was on the head end.
So didn't that pile a lot of other jobs, oddball stuff on the conductor?
Well, it was a lot more that you had to do because you had to do a lot of more work. But that's all with the job there. I mean, and my whole thing, because I trained a lot of these guys to come on the road.
Right.
And like I've said something to you, and I've said something to you about this too. I used to tell them, look, the sooner that you learn what's going on, the better it'll be for you. It's not no job for everybody.
That's right.
Dangerous job.
Yeah.
And when I said dangerous,
what was the most dangerous thing?
Well, the dangerous thing is you're around all the metal. You're around that metal.
Heavy
we used to have to switch cars out.
Oh man, take your fingers off, right?
Not fingers. No.
Hands. Oh, I don't even
and
want
legs
to hear
and
about
everything
it.
too.
Oh,
So,
come on.
And the safety aspect of a railroader's job.
It got better though.
It got better,
down
but
there, it did get better.
But just like just like you're operating a motor vehicle and you don't wear your seatbelt. I mean,
That's right.
you get in a
That's
major
right.
crash. If you get out between equipment
Mhm.
and you are switching cars, I mean, you got flat switching, you got gravity switching and things of that nature as far as switching rail cars from one track to another.
Right.
And you got in the yard mainly, well, right now is pretty much just a conductor and engineer, but sometimes you'll have a helper in a yard switching
You're right.
cars. And if you're on one end of the yard or one end of a track switching, flat switching, that means
Oh boy.
that cars don't have any air on them and you're just gravity switching cars. And that conductor or that brakeman cut that car off to roll down the track and you're not paying attention.
Whoa.
You walk out in front of that car.
It's over.
It's over. It's over. And I mean,
Did you all ever actually see some real
we
tragedies?
fatalities.
Real things, you know.
Even
But see,
Clarence
the
is
thing
shaking
about
his
that,
head.
too, I mean, I think about this, and that when we first started on the railroad, usually didn't about have radio, but the conductor,
Right.
and that was the big red. He had a big radio,
Uh-huh.
and so so the conductor had to be on the ground a lot of times, controlling the far as the movement, especially we did a lot of setting off on the road and picking up, and we did a lot of stuff at night too, a lot of that night stuff.
Boy.
But years back, and I learned this, we'd be picking up cars and setting off. Well, when you had a a good engineer, one of them old heads, see, they could tell exactly, and you would drop off.
When Mike say old heads, that's the engineer who's been around a while.
I figured.
Okay.
I'm talking about some of them guys that now those guys, you get,
A real veteran.
and they paid attention to what was going on too.
Yeah.
They paid attention.
It was second nature to them.
Oh yeah, see, that was just something where you now go, back there then, down there could contest this. We had telephone poles that we kind of measured car lengths too.
Sure.
And you look down, well, we go set out 50 cars. 50 cars is a whole lot of cars.
And when you say set out, you're disconnecting them.
We got to stop, and we got to tie brakes up.
Right.
Tie brakes on what we got left. Then we got to pull away from that and then pull down beyond the switches, and then they put us in another track. So.
Oh, I see. And then you're just leaving 50 cars by the side of to be picked up by another engine.
It might be the next train behind you.
Mm-hmm.
He might be setting back, 2 or 3 signals back, and he'll be setting back there.
So they all talk to each other with radios. I mean, did people have walkie-talkies? No, they didn't use that?
As time went on, we got to walkie-talkies where we all had on radio, which was a whole lot. There's your safety part.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right. That was a big
Over the years
deal.
it went, there's your safety part, So.
Ooh, otherwise, you're just sort of second-guessing and hoping the guy is off the train doing the job.
If you knew, like I said, you work with a lot of guys. You work with a lot of different engineers. And I'll say this, I don't mind saying, some of them, you knew the ones that you could really
trust
and depend on too, know. And sometimes you get yourself where this is a job, but you got people. Once you drop off on that train, and before we used to be able to get down while it was moving. They stopped that. It had to be stopped before we could get in, which was a good thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
Good thing. But once you get on the ground, I want to be working with somebody that knows what they're doing too.
Right.
And that's why I would always, once I become a conductor, and I would always, I didn't have to get down a lot of time, but, I'd get down with the crew.
Right, sure.
Because like I said, if something happened,
Yeah.
if I'm going to get fired, I want to know why I got fired.
All right, what's it? You've explained a lot of the hazards.
Too much there.
No, this is good.
Yeah.
But what was one of your favorite things about being a conductor? What did you like when you went to work in the morning? You were thinking, man, you would get to do this and that. Was it traveling, the scenery? No, not that.
No, what I was thinking about, because when they call you to go to work, we'd get something like a 2-hour call. In other words, we don't have no normal hours. We don't have no 7 to 11.
And we didn't punch a time card.
No, man. You went. No, you went over. Now they call you from 1 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the morning, anytime. Or one.
So you were on call
24/7.
After my rest is up. After my 10 hours rest was up, they could call me anytime.
Oh my gosh!
Now, when you see, they had an extra list. And then about that, Donna. You know about the extra list. Donnell has been on the ground, and worked on the ground too. So, but you have an extra list, but you got to get your rest there. You get your rest, and when you get, as I said, the job is dangerous enough. It's not like just pinching your fingers, okay?
So did you have a place for anybody to ever sleep on the train? That might seem a silly question to you, but I thought there was a place.
They could. You used to sleep on a train,
you could take a nap. You could take a nap on the train.
But then there's rules against sleeping.
That's right.
Because
well,
if you're
just like the cell
sleeping,
phone.
you're not doing the job.
That's right. I got
See, the cell phone, the same thing too. Now, if the train was stopped somewhere, we're on the side and there's something like that. That was a different thing. Before you just sleeping there, but see, that's why you had to have your rest.
Where'd you sleep? What kind of car was it? You mean
No.
you just flat out in the engine? Oh, yeah, okay.
Not on the floor.
Oh, no, okay.
There.
Well, that wouldn't work for me.
See, we could go way back about them engine things there, because some of them didn't even have bathrooms on them.
Yeah. Oh, for goodness sake.
But
Come on.
We probably need to talk about
No, but this is all fun. All right, so we got about another 5 minutes, so let's keep on talking.
Okay.
Clarence, I need you have you been thinking of any stories that you wanted to share with us today?
Well,
Take us away, Clarence.
Well, Donnell and Mike came from the operation side of the
That's
railroad.
right.
I come from the administrative side.
Okay.
My job was very boring. I mean, I didn't have a whole lot of excitement.
Didn't you sit there and hear? Didn't somebody say, "Oh my gosh, you won't believe what happened on the line out of I mean, you heard all that stuff, right? Weren't you some of the first people to hear that?
But one thing Clarence brought up when he first hired, he was a messenger. Mm-hmm. And what
did that mean?
And they did jobs as unlike anybody else on the railroad, and that entailed some running around and doing things of that nature.
Well, tell me, Clarence, what was a messenger for you? What did you do?
My experience with the railroad a little bit different. I became employed by the railroad in 1965. All of this is during the civil rights movement.
Oh, yeah.
During that time, the federal government had mandated that anybody that had any kind of contracts with the federal government, they had to hire minorities through that Civil Rights Act.
All right.
So that's what opened up a lot of employment for minorities.
They had to. Did they give them equal consideration, or were they still just hiring them as clerical and making them janitors?
Well, they would bring you in on what level you qualified to come in on.
Okay.
But, the minorities, if you look at what the minorities were at that time, it wasn't necessarily. I don't think that was directed to just blacks.
Okay, was it women?
Directed to women.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
To
anybody that was underrepresented. Not that different from DEI, even the recent wash of that.
Well,
same type of awareness.
That's when I became employed, because when I was employed in 1965, there weren't any blacks in the roles that I was playing.
Wow.
There were blacks that worked in the general office, in the mail room, and there were janitors, and there were people in reproduction and binding. But in the offices, I was one of the first blacks to hire into the office.
Wow, that was pretty neat.
And from that point on, I started out as a messenger in an environment that they never had any minorities in before.
I gotcha.
So that was kind of a challenging.
So you blazed a path. In other words, you had to set a standard.
Yeah, but so I came up through the ranks. I stayed in Treasury. I started out as a messenger, and when I retired, I retired as assistant treasurer. So I come up through the ranks. I worked every job in that department all the way up. So, and there were certain things during my tenure that happened. The first big thing for us was computers. And that was my world, computers. I enjoyed that. So we brought computers into the finance department or treasury department, which opened up a whole different way of doing things.
That changed everything, didn't it?
A whole different way. And then along with that, we opened up direct deposit payroll, electronic banking. All of those things came in when I was first employed with the railroad.
So you had a front row seat as well.
Yeah,
you were you were in the office looking out.
Yeah.
And they were on the rails, and they had front row seats. So everybody, you all were right there at a very exciting time
we
in
made
the
sure they
railroad
got paid.
industry.
because back in the day, the conductor had to keep up with the time slips.
Right.
Yeah.
They submitted the time slips, and Clarence talked about computer entry.
Yeah.
We'll submit our time slips, and they go to payroll, and then they have to input them for us to get paid correctly. And if we didn't get paid correctly,
we'd get called on it too.
Concern. We're going to keep on going because they remind us of what it took. A grit, a pride, and a legacy of the men who kept the trains rolling. And there was sacrifice in every position that everybody made. So we're grateful for your service and your memories. And I really look forward to our next time together. Welcome to today's special edition of Let's Talk About, the second in a series of interviews with men of the railroad. Specifically, we're joined by 3 members from the Norfolk and Western Railway, Norfolk Southern African American Heritage Group of Roanoke, Virginia. So these are retired railroad men who've spent their entire careers working on the legendary Norfolk and Western and Norfolk Southern rail lines. They're here to share with us firsthand stories. We're going to get some juicy stories on about life on the rails, memories from the yards and depots, and the powerful legacy of African American railroad workers who helped shape the culture and industry of our region here in Roanoke. And so sitting with us here today is Darnell Wood.
Good morning.
And Mike Bowens.
Good morning.
And Clarence Turpin.
Good morning.
And they introduced themselves the last time, but I'm just going to cut to the chase so we have more story time. And I'm just going to say that all of these men have distinguished careers. Darnell and Mike were both conductors and brakemen, and then, and went on up the ranks, as did Clarence, who wound up being a treasurer, assistant treasurer for Norfolk Southern. So they've seen the railway from inside the trains, from next to the trains on the rails and the offices looking out. And, they've had they've raised their families and have a whole band of friends and coworkers who have spent their life on the railway. So I'm going to try and get them to share some stories. And I need someone to kick off with something that you're thinking about.
I'll kick off.
Oh, good, Darnell. You do it.
One thing about railroaders, when you get together, we have a great time.
We do.
We talk railroading. As soon as we see each other, we start laughing, we start smiling. And a lot of the stories that, if you think about it, as far as the brakeman and conductor engineer, 10 hours rest. Mike talking about, 10 hours rest, you get called back out. We spent more time with each other on the railroad than we did at home with our families.
Oh, see,
we got to know each other. We got to know each other's families. We talked about our families all the time. I never will forget one story when I was a train master in Norfolk, and I was a stickler for the rules.
You're good for you.
I was a stickler for the rules because, as Mike said, it was a dangerous job out in the yard in the rail industry or operating the trains. And if you messed up, you could be killed. So one conductor, I talked to this guy several times about violating rules, and he kept on. So we had to carry him through the discipline process, and he got some time off because he couldn't follow the rules. Well, when he came back to work, he met me in a lunchroom one day over in the Barnyard, which is a part of the yard down in Lambert Point's coal piers. He said, "Mr. Woods, I understand that if your brother," and I got two brothers on the railroad. I had two brothers. They are retired as well. And said, "I understand that if your brothers were not in compliance with the rules, you'd fire them." And I looked right at him and said, "Yeah, they'd be fired because I'd rather my brothers be sitting across from me at a dinner table than me going to a funeral home to see my brother laid out in a funeral home, or he mounted his arm or legs and things of that nature." But, just the way it was. And that was good stories. I remember when I was a conductor on the old Radford division going to Bristol, and we used to stay at, it wasn't a really nice hotel. When you stay at these away from home locations, Roanoke was my home terminal.
Sure.
We went into Bluefield. They had the Milner Mats. We stayed in Milner Mats
What's
back
that?
then.
What's that?
Milner Mats. Milner Mats. Milner Mats was a hotel in Bluefield on Main Street, right off the rail yard.
Okay.
And I mean, when you walk in, you used to go to these rooms and you slept with your boots on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You go in the rooms and you walk, coal dust actually bounce off the floors when you walked in these rooms. And this was a place, and there was just a hotel for you to get your rest.
So no saloon in this hotel, huh? No saloon?
Well, they typically had some people around. There were typically people around. Every hotel you stayed in, there was somebody. If you want to get something, you can get something.
I'm sure you could.
And we had a guy up there that stayed and worked at the hotel, and there was somebody, you can get your alcoholic, you can get you a small bottle or whatever it was. But, could you get some woman to keep you company if that's what you needed? I'm going to plead the fifth. I'll let Mike
let me just go on record.
Those stories are out there, yes.
These are church-going men, so I'm not talking about them, but I'm just talking about the culture, the railroad culture, because these guys were away from home a lot.
And the stories were, sometimes you can have a family here and you can have a family there.
Oh, my goodness. Come on, Daniel. Come on, man.
They were out there.
Yeah, they
were out there.
We know.
The stories
We've talked
were out
about
there.
it before.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. Talked about it with Clarence, too. Because we all talk among ourselves as railroaders. I said,
And they knew when the payday was.
That's right.
That's right. Sure, they did.
When they knew. When you go to a home,
they came to town on payday.
They knew they would be out front of the hotel.
That's right.
There's no.
They knew.
They knew.
That's right.
They knew. But
that's no different than the way they developed. The Wild West. It was the same thing. It's part. It's just part of our history.
That's right.
It was the same thing.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you what. We were talking about that. About the discipline part. I've always felt a lot of times on the railroad, we kind of fire ourselves. I mean, I hate to say it like
What
that.
does that mean, fire yourself?
What I'm saying is that we have rules and regulations that we have to go by.
Oh.
Now, the thing about it, as time went on, it wouldn't just be one person getting fired. It wouldn't be just the engineer.
Oh.
It wouldn't just be the conductor. It would be, when you get fired, you get fired together. Up in the years. And now a long time ago, it used to be the one man. But if you in charge of something, which that's what it is. But you got to take it.
Ultimate accountability from the top.
That's what I say. That's why I say that. A lot of times, and I've seen guys do some dumb things. I said, man, you know that you're not supposed to be doing that. Or shortcuts are not good on the railroad.
Shortcuts, bad.
Shortcuts is what a lot of people have got hurt on.
Right.
And then paying attention.
Right.
At nighttime and stuff like that, out on the rail, Donnell can contest to this. It's so quiet sometimes. And when the cars are moving and stuff like rolling, when the wheels are rolling, you can't, that's why you have to be real attentive to what's going on. And some of our places that we would go and take cars to, you'd have about this much room between tracks there.
Ooh, yeah.
And you'd have to be watching both of them because it's any kind of shoving movement. You don't hear it a lot of times now unless somebody says, hey, we're going to shove track number 10. Well, if there you go again, not knowing where you're at too.
Let me ask you a question. Do they I bet they don't let anybody who's in charge, engineers or conductors, wear earbuds and listen to you can't do that in that job. It's just not allowed because then you couldn't hear what you're talking about.
No, they did away with our cell phone thing. We used to be able to have our cell phones.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And now it's a violation. It's a violation now. But I'll say, and I've always told people, I said, hey, if something would happen, we had discipline, something like. And I've been to a lot of investigations.
Yeah, I bet.
Over the years, I've been to a lot of investigations.
Who does the investigation beyond? Is the federal government comes in?
Darnell would.
Darnell, you come in?
But he would.
The supervisors over that territory, if an employee was found in non-compliance of the operating or safety rules, the supervisor over that territory will hold the investigation.
Okay.
That employee would have a union rep to represent him. So they'll bring in the union rep would act like his lawyer.
Yeah, I got you.
And then that supervisor who actually was over that territory will be the company's witness.
Right.
And then they'll have another supervisor actually hold the formal investigation.
I got you.
Then once that was done, then there would be discipline assessed. If it was warranted, there'll be discipline assessed. Then we have a labor relations department who looks at that discipline as well. If the discipline is too harsh, they will
appeal
it. Yeah. But most times the discipline was
probably right in line.
Right in line.
I mean, it was in line, and I agree with you. I agree with what he says. A lot of time, we'd have safety meetings. We'd have safety classes. Yeah. And like in every part of the rail, we have the safety classes, and we knew but you always, what I say again, shortcuts. And you get somebody that said, man, but there ain't nobody around, or something like that. Well, I don't have to tie no brakes on these cars.
Yeah.
And I can, I can tell you that's a no there because you don't never know who's, I'll say this, a lot of times their supervisors be standing in the bushes somewhere.
Oh, yeah, right.
I mean, Donnell knows. I mean, it's no big thing. I mean, I've worked with a lot of different supervisors over 30-some years.
Well, if they don't have a daggone bathroom on the train, you got to go out into the bushes sometime. Well, are you saying that's when they're going to take advantage?
No, they come after some years. They're past the bathroom part. See, people thought that these engines had, and cabooses had real bathrooms. No.
They didn't have real bathrooms. No. Not even a hole in the
floor. On the cabooses, that's all you had was a hole.
Hole in the floor, yeah.
And it would have plastic bucket.
That's if they used it. And that was another thing too. But I knew that the caboose was going to be gone anyway because it was,
Well, clarify one thing, because I keep talking about these cabooses, but I want someone to define it for me for the last time, because I've taken a couple of steam rides, okay? Pulled, and they all have the cabooses attached to these steam engines.
Okay.
So then my question for you is, what did the caboose was used for? Because when I sat in a caboose, took part of a ride in a caboose, and there was a pot-bellied stove in the daggone caboose. Yeah, I was just riding.
But the thing about the caboose is, see, that was the rear of the train.
Yeah.
And what you could do, on that caboose, you could look out your side. One, if anything was wrong, because you had somebody sitting on both sides most of the time.
Right.
If anything was wrong, then you could see down through it. Hey, we got a brake stick, and what we said, we got a handbrake on.
Oh,
down
I
there
see.
somewhere, and you can see it. And then you could get the smell too. You could get as
If
you
it burning
as you get
smell,
the railroad.
I gotcha.
As you work on it, that's something that's come natural, and also shoving movement. Like if we had to back up,
Right.
if we had to back, just that we had to. We have been backed up from down here over to Hurstburg or something like that. So,
Oh,
see, we
okay.
have them long shoves.
Right.
We call it shoving,
Right,
the shove
gotcha.
movement. See, but the caboose was back there for that too. Then I'll even go further than I can remember. We used to have to far as train orders. You remember that down there, far as
Yes.
train orders? Sometimes we used to have to pick up a train order down at Alta Vista. That's when we were going down on the Durham line. So it was a guy in the station all the time. There was somebody there all the time. He'd have a stick hanging out. You remember that down there?
I do.
Have a long stick.
It's
And
almost
then-
shaped in a Y with a string.
That's right. And what you would do on the back of the cab, and sometimes
You talking about on the back of the caboose?
I'm talking about on the back of the caboose, you'd be running about about 40 miles an hour, and you had to pick at. You had to
Stick your arm out.
Stick your arm out and
pull
grab
the
it?
order. Grab the
and
order.
grab.
Oh, and that was an order. So they put it
That
up
was
in the. Oh.
That was like a train order,
Oh, I gotcha.
like we was going on a different division, and we got our orders out of Roanoke.
Right.
And then when we, once we got down to Alta Vista, we'd get another order because we'd have to go down on another branch line.
I see. Well, you better not miss that, right?
Well, if you missed it,
What happens if you missed it?
If you missed it, you had to let them know that you missed it.
How did they let them know? Okay. How does the guy in the
On the
caboose?
radio.
Oh, okay. The
On
radio.
the radio.
Okay. So
And
there's radio
If
back
we
there.
speak about the radios, I can remember when the radios was on the ground. A lot of times we'd have
That's
to
correct.
stop. We'd have to stop the train and go down. Call the dispatcher.
That's correct.
And dispatcher say you got to pick up such and such cars. See, all of this was in the old and at my I guess through the 80s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right at the 90s there. See, it used to be.
And the dispatcher will give you got a string of 20 cars.
Yeah.
They'll give you the car number of the first car,
Right.
and they'll give you the car number of the 20th
next
car.
car to pick
And then
up.
you just check those and make sure they are right. And you pick your 20 cars up, add them to your train, and do your
Yeah.
brake test.
Okay. Now,
And
did
then
they keep the paperwork in the caboose? Is that my
The
imagination?
conductor,
What? Right.
the conductor would have to update his
You'd
train
have to turn it in
concept.
once you get to.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
once
what they
you get
used the
here.
caboose for. It was
Yeah.
a critical because of where it was located on the train, so
Yeah.
that whoever was riding had sight of stuff that other people didn't have sight of,
Yeah.
and then it also kept the records.
But you still had to let all the crew know what kind of train, know what you was hauling.
Right.
See, that was the thing. Some of them said, "Well, I've had engineers say, well, I don't need that." Yeah, you do need to know this.
Okay, so now we
Yeah,
don't
you
have
do
the.
need to know this. Yeah, you do need to know. Just like I know what kind. We got a dangerous car. See, we had books and everything that we could like if we wrecked or something like that, and then you'd always take your
Ooh.
hazmat
Hazmat book.
with you, hazmat. But
Right.
we'd take it with us because we didn't. But we knew it was back there.
Right, I got you.
We
So
knew
that
it was
would have been
back
in the
there.
caboose. So where is all this stuff now? It's all on your phone.
It's
I mean, now
probably
are they
on
back
on the
using?
head end of the trains. Because, well, matter of fact, you got to have your hazmat book with you anyway. When you come on duty,
Right.
you got to have all that stuff with you.
Okay,
all your
now-
operating rules, your
That's
hazmat,
right.
you had
That's right.
timetable.
Time
You had to
table.
have all that.
All right. Is this all in like PDF paper form or
it's
what?
in
Is
it's
it-
in notebook paper form.
book.
It's in a book form.
Okay.
It's in
Yeah.
It's your
in
book.
a book form, like you know,
Now, do they still disallow cell phones? So where?
no cell phone.
No cell phones. So
But I go further than that. Now they got cameras on now. On the
okay.
engines, they got cameras that's looking at you.
Okay. Do they have any cameras looking at the rail?
Oh yeah, well, the front
The front
cameras
guy,
look
the
at the
engine. is-
but I mean, but the cameras are so they can kind of look and see what you're doing.
I got you.
And then these trains now, I mean, they can stop at trains themselves. You're from Atlanta.
Can they
can stop
really?
at they can stop the train.
It's called positive train
Positive
control.
train control.
And that's what they're trying to get the
Whoa.
railroad industry into, because that way, if something were to happen, someone else can they can be at another satellite office somewhere. They actually bring that train to a stop.
Your speed.
I was going to ask you if they're monitoring your speed.
They know exactly how fast you're going.
So some of these train wrecks that we see when someone's taking a corner at the curb at 90 miles an hour, they get them.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, they can. It'd be kind of hard to do that now because, see, they can slow you down anytime they want.
But is there somebody watching all the time, every day on train to slow you down?
The dispatch
what do they call that person in the dispatch?
That's at the dispatch center there. Then they've got people that monitor that. Your road formers, I don't even that was something that they would do.
Used to, yeah.
That they used, but see, I don't even know whether they got road formers in because they did away with a lot of that job.
Yeah, the supervisors on their territory, train masters and road foremen, they used to do what we call efficiency checks. Just like the police running radar, radar gun. There were employed supervisors on the railroad that had a radar gun.
They'd be out in the bushes. That's what I said about the bushes.
Come on. Who would have thought?
They would check you.
Clarence is going to say something here over here.
When they replaced the cabooses, they got that little
EOT device.
It's called an EOT device, end of train device.
Okay.
End of train device.
What did that do, Clarence? I mean,
what that does on the head end, it's got a box on the head end
called the HOT.
Now the HOT on the head end.
Okay.
And then on the rear, it's got the EOT. Okay. But what you got to do, that far as your air, how much air you got back. Every time you put the brake on, you be looking at that box here and say, well, the air is coming down. See, the thing that people don't understand if you hadn't been on the train. See, they think that this train can stop like we putting our feet on the brakes, but no, but it don't. But that's what the EOT. That's the end of the train device.
That box.
That little red box.
Well,
that's what we used to have to put on there. We see, like if we picked up. Just say we set off, sometimes you have to set off from the rear. Now that's way back. Sometimes you'd have to set off, or you have 100 cars. You go set the rear 50 off. Just depends on how they got it set up when they leave the yard.
So let me explain something to me. So when you say they're going to set off, does that mean somebody gets off the train, goes back to that 50 mark and do that maneuvering with the couple device? That's done by hand?
That's done by me. That was done by me.
Buddy.
Done by me.
Whoa. And I'm looking at you. You've got all your fingers, Mike. So that's
right now I do. Yeah.
That says a lot.
Yes. But you have to be, you have to be careful.
Yeah, I guess so.
See, that's what I'm saying. That's the whole thing. And that was my whole thing. You had asked me earlier about something, about when I come to work, what I would think about
that's right.
is doing my job.
Right.
And getting back home to my family.
Right.
Because a lot of times, you were saying about the hours, I've seen the times that I'd come in at night and be gone before my kids get out of bed the next morning.
Wow.
I mean,
So you couldn't sign up to be a baseball coach?
No.
Or a son. You couldn't do any of that?
The only thing you could do is mark off, as we said. And then you had supervisors there. That was something, if you marked off, it just depends.
Which means you're asking off. You're asking for time off?
You're asking off there. You're asking off time. But now they got it now. Where you work so many days, they off now anyway.
And like I say, Mike said, back then, you call in if you may work 10, 15 days in a row back then without a day off, and then then you say, well, I need to be off. You mark off sick. Next thing you know, you out at the mall somewhere, or you out at a baseball game or a football game, and there you see your supervisor, and I said, "Man, I thought you were sick."
They told me that. I was in Norfolk. I was in Norfolk at the championship game there. I was in Norfolk at the high school championship game, and what did I see that next morning in the newspaper?
A picture of you? Was that really?
My supervisor told me. He said, "Mike," he said, "Yeah, I saw you in the paper. I said, you see me in the paper." When I went back to work, I marked back up at Sunday night, and I saw him. He said, "Mike, I saw you in the paper. Baby, you see me here." And there I was. I got the paper. What my wife had told me, your picture was in the paper.
And you think about it, but back then, if they were short employees, the supervisor would have brought in for marking off on the false pretense.
That's right.
Because he's sick.
Right.
But he's down at the game.
Right.
Yeah,
in Norfolk.
I'm in Norfolk. I'm sitting at the game. So, but it's all, but I really can't say nothing bad about the railroad. I mean,
no, the railroad sustained lots of families.
It did a lot of things from my, I was away from home all the time.
That's right. Yeah.
And I stayed in some popular places worse than down there was talking about. I stayed in some places, some of them motels, because some guys, and this is the truth. Down there can contest to this too, but this is true. Sometimes you go in the room, and these guys, some of the guys get in the bed with their boots on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they had
man, it just I used to. I've stayed at them places where the flop houses too. So
yeah, so they were.
it was. I stayed in Norfolk.
They weren't 5-star.
At a place in Norfolk, the Commodore Murray, and I mentioned that because it's towed down now.
Yeah.
But I can remember laying in the bed. The guys would tell me. They said, "Mike, make sure that you when you go in the room, put your grip, which we call a grip, which was our bag that we carried our clothes and our books and
Right.
So put that inside of a plastic bag. I said, what the devil are they saying that for? So I did. And he said, and one of the guys said, make sure you leave the light on in the bathroom. So, the rooms wasn't no bigger than half this size most of the time. So that bathroom was right there. So he said, what's that for? He said, you see. So I did. I went in there, and right outside the room was the fire escape. And people would be coming up the fire escape.
You got to be kidding.
This was on the main street down in North. This was a Commodore Murray. And I said, man, I told my wife when I got, what's your bag doing inside of a plastic bag? I said, I'm going to leave it sitting outside for a while. But far as the rooms, and you could see the little roaches just going up the wall.
Right. All right. Now, this was just because the railroad would go ahead and arrange for block reservations for you all at these places.
Block the rooms and then, but then they stopped.
So how come the coal guys were getting in there with their cold feet and everything?
Well, back then they had certain hotels you stayed in.
Where you stayed.
And if you got we're gonna put you up at a $15 hotel room, then putting you up at a Holiday Inn $55 room.
Right.
But today it has gotten over the last 10, 15
in the last
years,
20 years,
it's gotten better because
they moved us to better,
hotel.
Well,
but you got to complain, though. You got to complain.
Yeah, I got
about it, and then get them to come in there and let them see what it's all. Because a lot of times your supervisors would stay in the same place that you stayed at too.
And then it got better after he stayed there.
After a while, So but he had to take. But it was a procedure on that too. Mm-hmm. I mean, just because you was a trained master or either general manager, but so you got to take that up the line and say, hey, these guys, man, that place that they're staying at now, we need to kind of do something about it. And then you got these hotels and motels that would bet on it. They wanted the business.
Right, I got you. Let me ask you another question. We only have a couple minutes. If you're on the train, how do they handle any kind of breaks? How long would your quote unquote shift run when you're full attention and no breaks? How long was that shift?
Well, see, you always actually, when you riding on the train, you going down the road. See, that's why you want to work with somebody that is some conversation too.
Sure, I got you.
You know what I'm saying? But I have been on the train in my earlier years. I've been on the train and left Roanoke at the South Yard over in Roanoke.
Right.
Went 130 miles, and the engineer sat over there, wouldn't even say nothing to me.
And 130 miles took you how long?
It just depends. 130 miles, it could be 8 hours.
Depending what you're pulling, right?
Or most else was cold.
Right. So that's not going real fast, right? Huh?
Well, you go down, it's 40 mile an hour, and you got different speeds and curves. It's just like automobiles.
I got you.
So, yeah.
And Mike mentioned the only communication you probably had with that engineer is calling out signals.
You call them, and then half the time when you would call them out, they wouldn't even acknowledge you.
Let me ask you this: could you hear each other well enough to have so it's not
right over against that?
So it's not that noisy. You can.
Well, here we go again. We don't want to go back as far as when I first started out, because when I first started out, it was a whole lot of noise because the long hood engine would be in front of us. Yeah. See, that's another thing too people don't realize.
Yeah.
See the long hood, I'm talking about all that front being front,
Yeah.
But and I was glad when they started putting the engine, where we got the
short hood
forward.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
70s. Right?
70s, yeah. Say 70s, yeah.
we talk about safety, but not only did they have safety in the train yard, they had safety.
Oh yeah, in the offices too, man. You had guys got hurt
for the office as well.
Yeah.
Sitting in chairs at that's just like at the call office, when and that's clerical stuff too.
One thing about the railroad, they were one of the most safety focused.
And won the Harriman Award
in the world.
Right.
They try for that Harriman Safety Award every year.
Oh, okay.
And, the railroad safety was always safety first with the railroad.
Oh yeah, they'll tell you
with that. Yeah.
If you see something that wasn't safe, you let them know, and that's just like the surrounding areas that we got down off the train. You tell them, hey, they need to move some of this debris from around. Okay,
Yeah.
But if they don't know,
so it's communication. And and we have come to the end of our little wonderful session here today. I hate this; it goes so fast. Well, we'll have to do another one. But I just want to thank you for taking us on this incredible journey and sharing these details. But we will collect more stories from you, and we're very grateful for your service and your memories and all of that. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us here today.
You're welcome.
Hello, and welcome to today's program. We're shining a spotlight on a unique and often overlooked chapter in Roanoke's history: women in railroading. And for decades, the Norfolk and Western and later Norfolk Southern rail lines were the heartbeat of this region, driving not only the economy, but shaping the very identity of our community. And while the railroad has long been seen as a man's world, women, many of them African American, stepped into these jobs with strength, resilience, and determination. Today we'll hear their stories, why they joined the railroad, the challenges they faced, the doors they opened, and the lasting impact they've had on both their families and the Roanoke community. And I want to welcome our guest today, Brenda Powell. So good to have you, Brenda.
Thank you.
And Sylvia Long. And both these ladies have a lot to share with us about their life in the railroad. And I wanted to start with maybe your history. Brenda, can we start with you about what first drew you to railroad work? I understand your daddy worked in the railroad, correct?
Yes.
Did that get your attention? I mean, is that one of the reasons why you applied? How did that work for you?
My father worked for the railroad, Herman Powell. He worked for the railroad for almost 60-some years.
What did he do?
He started as what you call a baggage carrier.
Oh, yeah.
They called him red cap. They called them red caps at that time. But being a railroader was never my end all. Never was my thing to work for the railroad.
You weren't headed in that direction.
No, I went to college to become a teacher.
Uh-huh.
And I did teach for a while, but I worked part-time at Sears. And while I was working part-time for Sears, another young lady was there, and she was coming to the railroad to take a test.
Wow.
And she didn't have transportation, and I had transportation, so I drove her there, and I was waiting downstairs for her to take the test. And the person that was in charge of giving the test said, well, instead of you sitting down here waiting on her, why don't you just come on up and take the test with her?
Well, for goodness sakes.
And I did. And this test was to get on the railroad in the information technology department. And I passed the test, but she decided not to take the job, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And I
opened the door for you then, sounds like to me.
Yeah, it did. I had a choice between accepting a permanent teaching position with the Roanoke City Public Schools or going to work for the railroad, and I chose going to work for the railroad.
Well, that sounds like it might have been a good decision in the long run because you were there a long time. What year was that?
This was in 1970. I came to work for the railroad in 1978. This was during the big strike that they had at that time. Had to cross picket lines and all that stuff, but it was no problem. My father worked for the railroad, and so all they said was, "That's Red Cap's daughter. Let her through."
Oh,
so that was no problem. And I started with the railroad in the information technology department as a junior analyst.
And way back in the day, and we're going to talk about what all those beginnings were like, because you've seen all of those amazing technological changes and advances during the course of your career, right? You said quickly, you were telling me that when you first started, you started with cards, the initial language.
We wrote programs on cards, cards. It called a card reader, and you did your programming on these. You wrote your program, and then you went into this room, and this card reader typed out. You typed it into this machine, and the card reader wrote it out on cards. Put little holes in cards, and then you took your cards down, and it read it into another reader, which printed it out and then tried to run it. And if it didn't run correctly or didn't put out what you thought it was going to put, then you went back to the drawing board and got those cards. Program wrote until you got it correctly in the way that you wanted to come out to print the reports or do the driving of the systems and all that stuff that was the railroad was using at that time.
And then you had to go ahead and learn continually. You were learning new. They were upgrading all the time.
Programs at all times. And then, we went from cards to actual writing programs into the computer, because back in 78, computers was really just starting to take off. And the big person that, was IBM that everybody was dealing with at that time.
Great big pieces of equipment, right?
Big pieces of equipment. And there was no personal computers. It was just computers. We went in, we wrote our programs at our desk, and then we went in. And sometimes we had to sign up for time to go into the room and key our programs into the computer. And then go back to try to get it to work. If it didn't work, then you went back to your desk and try to figure out, well, what do I need to do to produce the report that each department needed.
Now, were there a lot of women at that point in time in that department with you?
At that time, there was not a lot of women in the computer department. I guess at that time, I caught maybe about 10 or 12. And in my class itself, it was 3 of us.
Right.
But by the time I retired, it was only 2 of us that actually completed all the way through and stayed with the railroad.
Wow.
Everybody else by that time had left. They didn't want to continue to work for the railroad.
Well, that was a great opportunity. We're going to go get back with you. I want to check in with Sylvia.
Good morning.
Good morning. And you had a slightly different startup down in Chattanooga.
I did. I started my railroad career with Southern Railway in Chattanooga. And Chattanooga is a pretty good-sized town, and Southern Railway was just another company, a train that passed through. Of course, they had yards and terminals, but there was really only one general office building, and that contained the freight claims department, which I started out in.
All righty. And what does that mean, the freight claims? It sounds like, so there's damaged goods, and you're going to handle that.
Well, I did not, because I started out as a steno.
Okay.
And they had males who were investigators who investigated any claims, but you're correct in that if there was damage, there had to be an investigation, and then it was settled between the railroads, usually divided by the number of miles that the product spent on each line, because it could have been traveled across several lines.
So the accountability was shared between the railroad lines.
Exactly.
Now then, how did you get to Roanoke, Sylvia?
When Southern and NNW merged to create Norfolk Southern, they moved our freight claims department, freight claims and damage prevention, to Roanoke. So they moved our entire department. But not everyone came. 33 people were transferred, and I was one of them.
Well, I think you were blessed, my personal opinion.
I wasn't certain about coming, and I always used that as the turning point where I went from a job to a career.
I gotcha. So when you came, you stayed with baggage claims?
I was in freight. It was freight.
Freight.
Yes, I was in freight claims and damage prevention, but I started out as a key punch operator.
No kidding.
Yes.
And so how did that how did that morph? How did your job then change? You wound up doing something differently than
I did.
you did?
I did. That was, in my opinion, that was what I would consider a mindless job, because we were keying in various forms of information, and it was like it went from your hands to your fingers without you really having to think about it.
Yeah.
You just saw it and you keyed it. And I did that for just maybe a couple of years, and then I moved over to a clerk steno position, and that was more work in the form of like secretarial
All right.
work.
What was the ceiling like? Did you all feel that as women or as African American women? In other words, there certainly was discrimination going
Women.
on inside the railroad. Everybody was paid well for what they did, from what I understand. But there were only certain slots that you would be either eligible for at the time. Is that the way it was?
And as in Chattanooga, when we started, I think there were no female investigators. The females were secretaries,
Mhm.
clerks, stenos. And when we moved to Chattanooga, it was something similar. I think there was one female assistant investigator, but she had transferred to Roanoke from another railroad from up north. I can't recall the railroad, but it was one that the NNW had merged with or purchased.
Right.
So there was one female, and the rest of the females were stenos and clerks and secretaries.
What about your experience, Brenda?
My experience, I can recall when I first got the job with the railroad, and I was expressing my opinion to some other railroaders, men, and I was at a gas station, and I was so excited because, I just gotten the job, and
Yeah.
I was expressing it to them, and the first thing that they asked me, well, who are you going to be working for? What secretarial position are you going to be doing? And I said, I'm not a secretary. And they said, most of women that come to the railroad is going to be a secretary. And I said, no, I'm going to be, because my position was considered part of management. I said, no, I'm going to be working, it's a management position, and I'm going to be a junior analyst in the computer department. And they looked at me in shock, because, not many women had even, I think, gotten into that particular job. It was mostly male. The railroad has always been mostly male. It wasn't, I say, in the 80s, when it started broadening and more female started getting involved in the railroad. And at that time, we were starting to also get Afro-American women in managerial positions, even here in Roanoke. I think this was as we started to merge with Southern Railroad. And then we took on Conrail. More women was showing up in managerial positions, assistant managers. But like I said, that was not, I would say, not until like mid 80s, early 90s, when we started seeing more female, even Afro-American female, started getting into those positions.
And I understand the men had the same type of challenge. They couldn't be, they would be told that they were given a clerical job, but it was a janitorial job. Or, it was a while before they could be conductors, or they couldn't be an engineer. Am I getting that right? Because that's what we were talking about with the men in a prior session, that they couldn't move up into the upper crust, high-paying jobs for a long time. Some of the fellows that were there. So there was some of that same discrimination just because they were African American. But what about there had to have been a sisterhood there, but did you try and help get other women in yourself? It was a good job, correct?
Yeah, working for the railroad was a good job. It paid well. As far as Roanoke was concerned, if you work for the railroad, you worked, and everybody, wherever you went, stores, banks, whatever you went after, cars, if you told them you worked for the railroad, then they assumed, hey, you're making it.
Yeah.
But
You had a solid job.
you had a solid job, nothing to worry about. And pretty much it has been. I have no complaints about the railroad. It has led me to a comfortable life. I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying my retirement from the railroad. I was there for 37 and a half years.
Wow. So you got a pension, which is really rare in today's world. It's hard to even get a job where they can guarantee you a pension.
That's exactly right.
Right.
And so this made a huge difference.
Right. And as far as the sisterhood, in the IT department, we did band together. We helped each other. When other Afro-American came on board, especially in our department, we helped them learn the ropes, learn the languages, band together to, for any, if we had a problem or something like that, we try to talk it out with each other, and help each other to advance.
And there was no union for you. You were not a
I
union
was not
employee.
A union worker, no.
But Sylvia, you were
I was
a union employee.
for 19 years.
So how did that, what were the benefits of that for you?
The main benefit was that I had a protected position, which meant that once I was in that position, I couldn't be bumped from that. So it was like a solid
Oh, that's
position.
pretty
It
neat.
was like maybe a step from going into management.
Right.
But I didn't always have that position. It was not until I had been in Roanoke for a few years that I was able to advance to that. But we talk about women. In Chattanooga, there were 2 Black women in the department, and one of them was the secretary to the general manager, and I was the other. When we moved to Roanoke, there were still just the 2 Black women in that department. And then eventually, she was promoted and to a manager's position and transferred to Atlanta. And then I moved over into her position. But during that entire time, there was not another Black woman in the department. I was it. And as with most railroad jobs or departments, I should say, it was male dominated.
Sure. Now, did you have children, Sylvia, while you were here?
Mm-hmm.
So how did this, were there demands on your time? Was there a lot of overtime required of you all, or because of the slot you were in, you knew that you could, you're laughing over there, Brenda. What's so funny?
Well, as working in the computer department, we were responsible for all the programs and the systems that was running. So if something went wrong, my job was 24/7, 7 days a week.
Wow.
And we I worked for the payroll once I got out of my training classes, I was in payroll. I worked in payroll and HR the whole time, and moved up the ladder from junior analyst to programmer, senior programmer, assistant programmer. And we were responsible for those programs to keep them running. So if something happened any time of day, any day of the week, we had to figure out how to get it back up and running. And we couldn't take all day, although some of them did take, or we found a workaround until we fixed the problem. But the trains had to move.
Right.
People had to get paid. So we had to fix those programs fast.
So that had to be a challenge. You had children at home?
No, I have no kids.
Well, that helped in that situation.
Right. And it did interfere with a lot of family time.
Even church time. Even church time, right?
Time. Anytime. And it got to the point that we ended up putting on call within my group, payroll group. We each had 7 days. It was like, sometime it was 9 of us, 10 of us, depends on how many was in the group. And we rotated. and we had a whole week from that Friday. We changed on that Friday until the following Friday, and we went any time of day, night. We were there, and sometimes it was a whole weekend or day. I remember one time one payroll system we call it a bended, which means the program stopped running, and we had to come in and fix it. And on that particular time, we could not find the problem. My manager, system manager, and several of us program was in there trying to figure out. We started on that Friday night. The director, our head director, he was out of town. And we started on that Friday night trying to figure out what was wrong with that program. We were still there. Saturday night, no one had gone home. And
there was no place to sleep there, right? I mean,
we had what you call a lounge area. Where we,
did that fill up?
Yeah, I mean, hey, we, food, and we took turns resting, trying to figure out, and we would try different things and couldn't find it. And most of it was off by a penny, and we could not find. And somebody said, well, let's just add a penny. But every time we added a penny, it messed up more.
Oh, no.
And if we take away that penny, we couldn't figure out. And finally, the director came back from being out of town, and we had left messages for him. And he came in and he said, I know. Well, he said, everybody is going home. He said, because they need to do something in the office. And I don't know what he told them to do, but that program worked.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And so he knew something that he didn't tell us. And we got the program to work. And this was Sunday morning. So, we had been there since Friday trying to figure out what was wrong. And it was tiresome. When you've been there all weekend, it was tiresome. But he said it's not our program. It's something that they did wrong. And so so my job was at that time, and it's still until I retired, was 24/7, 7 days a week. And if somebody that was on call needed you, we had each other's back. And so if payroll didn't work, we had to get it up and running fast.
So you were just doing the payroll for the Roanoke?
No.
Team, you were doing
the whole NW Norfolk Southern.
Well, that was a big deal.
Yes.
What about big storms and things? Do you remember any of those? I mean, were you ever stuck in there for any big snowstorms back in the day? It used to snow around here.
When it used to snow around Roanoke, yes. I remember one day we were writing a program we were getting ready to change over systems. And it had been snowing all day. It was after 5 o'clock, and was just 3 of us still there trying to get this program up and running so we can have it in the system ready for next week. And the more it snowed, we kept looking out the window. And, at that time, snow didn't it was piling up. It was almost covering the car. And it did. And by the time we left and got the program running to the point that it can go in on Monday morning, when we went outside, we could hardly even move to the snow. Because back then, during the early 80s, 70s, snow was deep in Roanoke. We haven't had that kind of snow in a long, long time here in Roanoke. But yes, we used to have some really deep snowstorms back then. And I have gone to work from home in snow.
Yeah.
Deep. Because it had, when something happened in the system, you had to get there no matter what.
Well, it sounds like you were really responsible for a lot, and they were counting on you, so you were very strategic. position.
Yes, they count that. And when the payroll had to get run no matter what. And if somebody entered something wrong or something that should have run correctly didn't run, we had to get it up and running. And I have to admit, the payroll group that I work with, we might have fussed with each other about having to get woken up or having to come in, but we worked well together to get it fixed.
Well, that's
most of the time it was only one or two Afro-Americans in my group working on payroll.
Well, you sound like you had to be very, very dedicated. And there are not even that many other jobs you can think of now, except for first responders or something, that are on that kind of, 24/7 call.
I think everybody that worked for the railroad was pretty much dedicated and wanted to do their job to the best of their ability, because you wanted to get a good evaluation.
Did you get regular raises? How did they calculate that?
We got regular raises. We got evaluated once a year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that all the evaluations were up to what we thought we were doing good, but it all depended on your manager. All the managers would get together once a year and look at the evaluations and then come back and tell you and go over the evaluations with you. You had a chance to voice your opinion while you were sitting in there, or either write your opinion, but I don't know if a lot of people wrote opinions. I think a few probably did, but I think the majority of us, just as long as there was a scale that they used as far as giving you a raise.
Mm-hmm.
Each time my raise was pretty good. I didn't complain a lot. But we did. You get a chance to sit in there with your manager and voice your opinion about how they felt things were going. Everything wasn't always kosher in those meetings, but we did end up, and then it got to the point that sometimes you would say, does it really matter? Because they're not going to change their opinion on what they've already approved.
Right.
And the evaluations had already been turned in. So, you can sit there and talk it out. But
maybe to make a difference for the next time, trying to have some impact, sort of push back a little bit.
They'll tell you what you need to improve on.
Right.
And then the next time that might be changed, but it might be something else. And evaluations is based on what they see and what they think they see.
I gotcha.
And ours is, your evaluation is completely different.
Well, we're going to continue this as part of our series because I want to continue to talk about the women of Norfolk Western and Norfolk Southern because you all left more than memories. You left a legacy of resilience and progress, and your work helped shape families, communities, and the very history of railroading in Roanoke. For today, I wanted to thank Sylvia Long and Brenda Powell, and tune in again so that we can hear the rest of the story. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
My pleasure.
Railroading has always been central to Roanoke's story. But alongside the steel and steam were women, many of them African American, who took on railroad jobs with courage and determination. And together we're going to honor their voices and their place in railroading history. And we're picking up our conversation again with Brenda Powell and Sylvia Long. They have tremendous careers behind them. Brenda was with the railroad for 37 and a half years. Sylvia was there for 39 years. And they made their contribution to the culture in Roanoke that was really benefited by the presence of Norfolk and NW and then Norfolk Southern. But now we have an interesting thing. We're right on the cutting edge, aren't we, ladies, of Union Pacific buying Norfolk Southern and really sort of absorbing it all. And why don't we just talk just for a moment, you all, because you have a history of being close to the railroad, you heard some of the chatter long before it actually happened. And it looks like Union Pacific has now bought it. It was sort of meant to be a merger at first, wasn't it, Sylvia? What you heard initially?
I heard that exactly, that there was going to be a merger between the UP and Norfolk Southern. And then I heard, no, UP is buying Norfolk Southern. And so it was kind of back and forth until there was an official announcement, and the person who was going to be president of this new company was a Union Pacific person.
So what are you thinking some of the results of that might be, Brenda, as you reflect on what the changes might be? You said that you don't think it's going to take 2 years to play and walk all of this out anyway, right?
Right. Like Sylvia, my chatter was it was going to be a merger. It had always been talked about as being a merger. But then reading in the paper and from the fruit persons that still work for the railroad, it was finally told that it's UP is buying Norfolk Southern for some odd $1 billion, whatever. So right now, I'm not sure what's going to actually happen. I'm not sure. I don't know if a lot of people remember a couple of years ago, there was always, they tried to, a group of financiers tried to come in and take over Norfolk and Southern at a stockholders meeting. And that fell through, but they did end up with 2 of the members from that financial group ending up on the board of Norfolk Southern. And then there's been, with the derailment up in Ohio and a lot of bad publicity pertaining to Norfolk and Southern. And I think last month I saw an article where they said that Norfolk Southern didn't tell the truth about the derailment and several other things. I think that has put Norfolk Southern in a bad light. And then there was certain things happening with the president of Norfolk Southern. All of this is coming out all at one time, right, at a company that has done a lot for Roanoke and other areas. That they could not get away from.
Right.
And then Union Pacific, like I said, throughout the years, it has always been talked about Norfolk Southern merging with somebody. But it looks like now it's going to happen. And it looks like Norfolk Southern is just going to be wiped, to me, with Union Pacific. Although we'll probably see Norfolk Southern trains, because it'll be a long time before they change all these trains over to, say, Union Pacific.
Is Union Pacific a union railroad?
No.
Union shop? No. Okay.
I mean, they do have union employees, just like any railroad does. But
how does that work? Explain that, Sylvia, because some groups are members of unions. Like you were part of a group in Chattanooga before you came up here. You were part of a union. Is that correct?
I was still a union even after the union after I moved here.
But Brenda, who also worked in the railroad, was never a part of the union. So how do they pick and choose the groups inside of a railroad that are unionized?
Yep, it depends on the craft, on the job itself.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yes.
All right. And weren't you talking about an experience that you had? You said you appreciated the union because it helped protect your status, correct?
Correct. It did. It was the position that I had was a step up. It was still a union position, but it was a position that no one could bump me off of. And that works. When you're in a position that is a union job, if something happens to that position, you're on a roster. a
Okay.
seniority roster. And if your job was cut, then you had the ability to take someone else's job. You had to qualify for it, but you still had the opportunity. And this was a protected position. It was like a step down from being on a management position. You still paid union dues. You got all the benefits.
Did they have less discrimination, either against women or against African Americans inside a union, or not?
My experience wasn't with the union so much as that I just paid my dues. And I never went to any union meetings here. I did in Chattanooga, but not here. So you paid your dues and you had your protection and all the benefits
Okay.
that came along with being in the union.
Okay. There were opportunities for women for both of you, but it gradually got better, correct? Brenda, I know both of you worked in offices where you were one of two or one of three or one of, 10 out of 60, but talk about that a little bit for us, Brenda.
I think it got better for women, and especially it got a little better for Afro-American women.
Mm-hmm.
It was not so much the company. It depended on the persons that were in the positions above you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you reported it, it was fixed and corrected. But it was the persons that was in the position over you
Yeah, good point.
that caused the discrimination or held you back from achieving another position or raise. But then once that person moved on or no longer worked for the railroad, it was okay. But it was not, like I said, most of the time it was not, because Norfolk Southern did try their best to not show discrimination as far as their hiring and promotions. It was, and if it was reported, I remember one time, at the time I worked for the railroad, I was also vice president with the NAACP.
Huh.
And we had a lot of programs going on for Norfolk Southern, but one of the programs was buying artwork and putting artwork up throughout the railroad. And in one department, they put up some artwork pertaining to slaves out in the cotton fields and so forth on the walls. And they didn't think anything of it because the artists
Mm-hmm.
that did the paintings or the photographs was Afro-American.
Right.
So they assumed that because it was an Afro-American that did the photographs, it was okay to hang them up in the building. But
They got pushback from that.
they got pushback from that because even though the artwork was great, I mean, it was no problem.
They just didn't want the emphasis on that.
But when you have Afro-Americans working in a department and they're walking by those paintings,
I got you.
I mean, and those
it hurt their heart. It hurt their heart.
to
Yeah.
see it, and not only that, to hear the comments
Oh.
coming from that other
Oh, for goodness
employees.
sakes. Oh, for goodness sakes.
uh,
And they were probably initially, when they took the photographs and everything, thinking that it was a way of honoring a lot of
yes,
what they had
thought that-
come through
right.
and left behind.
right. The photo, that's what the artists
Right.
portrayed, but the artists didn't know when Norfolk Southern purchased those photographs, where they're going
I
to be
gotcha.
hung.
And yeah.
The persons that was on that committee probably didn't understand. They thought it was okay
Right.
because it was by Afro-American. It was just portraits. But you have to realize the thinking of other people, especially by whites and others, the comments and stuff, and then you being Afro-American having to listen to those comments. And so by being part of it, we had a meeting with the committee and the vice president that was over the placement of the art, and try to and explain to them the feelings. A lot of people don't understand. It's not so much that we didn't like it, whatever, but to see it every day as you walk by, it brought up memories of, and everybody wants us to forget about those memories, but you can't forget.
Well, and we aren't that far away from
No.
You know? I mean, you know.
And so once it was explained to them how it was affecting the Afro-American employees from the comments and happened to walk past it, within a day after that meeting, those paintings were taken down.
Wow.
And others like flowers and all the, different things were put up there.
Yeah, more.
But once they got the understanding of it, and I,
that's a good story.
So so it, like I said, it wasn't so much the company; it was the employees and the people that that manage those positions that you have to. At times, it came out of them about their feelings and comments and so forth. But
all sorts of social changes. You've seen them. You've seen the technological changes in the job that you had, but you've also seen a lot of social changes. I think we were talking a little bit about even the dress code that changed and that women experienced. And I was sharing that I remember as a little girl getting on a train and getting all dressed up, complete with white gloves and a hat, and little matching white patent leather shoes or whatever it was, because it was a thrill and a big deal to ride a train, like riding an airplane.
And we used to, by working for Norfolk and Western, we used to could ride the trains free.
Oh my!
And then for a while, even after we merged with Norfolk Southern Commerce, we could ride the trains free. Up until, Amtrak and all that came into play. But we could get, if it was available, we could ride the train.
Well, you were talking too, Sylvia, about the dress codes inside, the offices and everything where you worked. And there was you basically had to dress up. There were no jeans, you said, until, 99? There was no relaxed dress code, correct?
Right, and even in 99, for people in a management position, there were still no jeans or anything like that. It was more business casual, I think is how they phrased
business
it.
casual is how
Business
they framed
casual,
it, yes.
right.
So it wasn't no jeans. And like I said, maybe on Fridays, even once, twice a month, they would make, if you wanted to wear jeans, you paid $5. But it was mostly just to collect money and have
just a fun thing.
But
and that it wasn't that way in our department because we dealt with the public. The department I was in, material management, purchasing, sourcing, it's had so many different names since I started. We dealt with the public. We dealt with outside salespeople. So we always had to dress in a way that was reflective of Norfolk Southern and its values. So that meant always dressing.
Well, and back in the day, what was your white glove story?
When I first started to work at the Southern Railway, I recall that the ladies there always wore white gloves to work, and when they went out to lunch and when they came back, when they got ready to go home, it was a white glove. And I understand that it was the same way for N&W, for the women who worked there. It was white gloves, it was just a special dress code. And it relaxed over the years, but it wasn't until after the merger with Conrail that it went from being really dressed to business casual. But even then, it was still neat dress.
Yeah, gotcha. So
we had someone to come in to talk about business, what they expected as far as business casual. We had somebody from Miller and Rhodes.
Oh, yeah.
Different stores.
Had that.
I think it was not so much just to let people know what they expect, what business casual Well, it's because everybody has a different interpretation of business casual. And at times it did get, by the time I retired, uh, business casual really, at a time, sometimes it became really casual.
Emphasis on casual.
And
which
not
is,
in the department that I worked in, because even after the business casual, the women still dressed. But the men, you could see it more because they didn't have to wear ties
right.
and sport coats to work any longer.
Well, I imagine it's even, I wonder how different it is now because, it's been 10 years, since you all were there.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. I've had friends. I've talked, especially from Atlanta and Norfolk, and we've talked throughout the years. And I don't think it changed that much. I think just because they moved to a different area, different city, they pretty much stayed the same.
Well, one thing that didn't stay the same was the technological developments, especially where you were at. I'm sure it applies to both of you because we've seen the changes. You were in there.
It changes in computers and languages and all that stuff, and a lot of it got outsourced to departments. Outside businesses and stuff, and we were experiencing that before we even moved until they shut down.
And then, and you were mentioning too, Brenda, a very important point, because as the railroad changed, in other words, you used to have 5 men, take a train, on its route. You'd have the conductor, you'd have the brakeman, you'd have the guy at the front,
the fireman,
the fireman.
Yes,
And
yes.
you were saying that as they dropped off those jobs and refined it down to even 2 people, you had
Right.
the engineer and
and
the
he
conductor.
didn't really have a lot to do because after a while, the trains were pretty much running themselves with
but
the
they
new technology.
always had to be alert and awake.
Yeah.
They had that toggle switch
Yes.
that they had to touch every 2 minutes or something and ensure that they did
Oh,
not
really?
fall
Yeah.
asleep.
Tell me
Yes.
about that. Where was the toggle switch?
It was in the cab with
It was
the
an
engineer.
So they
But
had
the conductor was the boss of
Okay.
the crew.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. But as they made those adjustments, then you, Brenda, in there, behind the scenes, not just doing the payroll, but adopting everything else that helped monitor all those systems,
Right.
you would have to make those
I mean,
changes.
We were in the HR, like I said, HR payroll department.
Yeah.
But the other departments were the ones that was helping to make those changes, put the new systems in as technology improved as far as operating trains, controlling the tracks, the lighting, the switching, all of that was coming into play. And it's changing even to this day.
I'm sure, because AI and everything else. Are
Anyway.
Are those departments shrinking? I mean, have you
Yes,
heard?
I think a lot of those departments are shrinking, but they are also still requiring behind the scenes not only personnel within the railroad information technology department, but as they outsource and new systems, new companies come on with a better way to operate a train or pick up materials, transport them, and you have to incorporate what they have, these new outside companies are offering. If Norfolk Southern decide this is the way that they want to go, then you have to switch up systems to figure out how to incorporate, or they let the outside company try to incorporate it into Norfolk Southern's system. And I'm assuming the same thing is going to happen with Union Pacific, which like I said, I'm interested to see how it's going to work out, and especially for those of us who are on the peripheral vision of what type is it going to affect anything that Norfolk Southern has in place for us as far as
pensions and retirement
and benefit.
Yes.
Mhm.
So we're interested. That's the part that I'm interested in. Is any of that going to change? I know they have outsourced, like I said, a lot of businesses and stuff to other companies. within Norfolk Southern. So is Union Pacific doing the same thing?
I almost feel positive that our systems will change over to whatever the UP system is using, because that's the way the UP has done, because it's gobbled up a lot of other railroads.
Sure.
And I think that it will continue, even with Norfolk Southern.
How do you think, let's take a look at the Roanoke community as a whole and all that the railroad helped to build through the dissemination of the finances, money earned from the railroad spread out through the community. And now that Union Pacific has bought Norfolk Southern, and we don't know to the degree that it will impact the jobs, but we've seen the railroad employee population shrink dramatically here as they've moved everything out, first to Norfolk, then Atlanta, and now who knows where. What do you think is going to happen? What are some of your thoughts about? Are you concerned? Are we concerned about opportunities that now won't be there for the generations that are coming up because it can't be really replaced by anything that we've seen so far?
When Norfolk Southern left Roanoke in 2015, well, even before then, you could see the opportunities, and what it offered Roanoke started dwindling. When we shut down a lot of our office buildings here in Roanoke, a lot of families, some went to Norfolk, some went to Atlanta, and some stayed, and they had to redirect where they wanted to work. At the time that Carillion took on some, and some other went with other businesses here in Roanoke, it wasn't the same as working for the railroad, but they did not want to leave. So the opportunities and what Norfolk Southern did for Roanoke, I think, dwindled after 2015. And as you can see, not a lot of railroading is left. In Roanoke, I think we still have a few offices here, but there were a lot of employees who worked up there on 24th Street, as far as train shifting and all that stuff, lost jobs. Some of them never was able to find a job equivalent to what they had.
Yeah, that's the hard
Some
thing.
of them, to this day, I don't think some of them may not have even found a job, period, that they felt, and some of them created jobs on their own to help support themselves and their families.
And
some of them did.
In your family, it ended with you, correct? It was your daddy, then was you.
Well,
and
my
then...
father retired way before, and
sure,
and had passed on by the time Norfolk Southern had left. But
do you have brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, or anybody else? Nobody else is in the railroad.
Nobody else worked for the railroad. I was the only one in my family, and not like work for the railroad. All of them had other jobs. Never crossed our mind to even apply for a job. They just didn't want to.
What about you, Sylvia? Is there anybody else in your family now that you're
It started
out?
and stopped with me.
Well, well, I think you got the best of that period of time, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. So that was advantageous for you. Are there any other stories or anybody else in particular that you can think about that was either your mentor or a person of significance for you?
I can think of someone. I actually just saw him a couple of months ago. I was in the rules department, and this guy, his name is Bill Honeycutt. He was assistant vice president over our department. And I never finished college. I started college, and then things happened, and I had 2.5 years in.
Wow.
And I never finished, and he continued to encourage me to do that.
Really?
And I did.
No kidding.
And I ended up getting a bachelor's degree. And excuse me, I finished that in 99, but I left that department in 2000. And then in 2006, I became bored because all of my children were gone. So I went back and I got an MBA.
Oh my gosh.
And it was all because Bill thought a lot of me and strongly encouraged me. I think he knew that having a degree would really help further my career.
Well, that's a great story. So now you're poised for phase 2. So no more retirement for you. Well, at least you're armed and ready. You are locked and loaded.
And you know
for
what?
Whatever.
It's strange we're talking about this because there were times when I feel as just a person and not so much a woman nor a Black woman that I was qualified for a position that I did not get, more qualified than the person that they appointed to that position. And, and in that being in that department, one of the things that we were strongly encouraged to do was to become a certified purchasing manager. So I was a certified purchasing manager and I had an MBA, but they chose someone, a male, a younger person, a male, to give a position to. And they tried to pacify me by telling me, well, we've got this other position that we think you would be great for.
Well, listen, this has been a great, great time together. And thank you, ladies, so much for sharing. I want to really, really thank you for all that you did for the railroading industry. And I know that there's more to talk about. We may try and get that another time. But thank you both. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Brenda.
You're welcome.
All righty. Bye-bye. The story of women in railroading is a story of perseverance, progress, and quiet strength. Today, I am meeting with Cheryl Manning, a 36-year veteran of Norfolk Southern, and she knows railroading, which is why we've got Cheryl with us today. Thank you for joining us, Cheryl.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Linda. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start at the beginning. You started with the railroad in Washington, D.C. What path led you to, and how did you make a decision to join the railroad? How old were you and what was going on?
Well, grew up in Washington, D.C., was not born there, but I grew up there. And in high school, knew I was going to college. Counselor came to my house to talk about affirmative action and about needing money, going to college and how much it would cost. Ended up going to the University of Pittsburgh.
Wow.
A predominantly white institution.
Yeah.
Got a degree, got 2 degrees, as a matter of fact. No college debt. And so when I was finishing grad school, I got my bachelor's in economics and MBA afterwards, both at the University of Pittsburgh, and applied for several jobs around the country. Got offered 3 jobs, one in Connecticut, one in Ohio. The only job that was offered to me in Washington, D.C. was with the railroad, was with Southern Railway.
Isn't that something?
I wanted to come home. I wanted to go back to Washington, so I accepted that job. I was 23 years old. I was the first woman and second Black person to be hired into the Southern Railway Executive Marketing Training Program.
Wow.
That was 1974.
Well, you were armed for that. I mean, because you came with those degrees.
I did come with those degrees.
Which was a big flipping deal for you.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes,
that was a big deal then.
I worked there for 9 years in Washington. And probably 1980, Southern Railway and the Norfolk and Western, or the N&W, as y'all say here, right. Those 2 railroads merged. I was given the opportunity to go to a couple of different cities. Coming to Roanoke was the better opportunity. So my 15-month-old son and I moved to Roanoke, got the job. I had planned to be here for 1 year. I needed to work for 10 years to be fully vested.
Wow. Okay.
And 43 years later, I'm still here.
Now, were you a union employee? I mean, does that play into this at all?
I was never a union employee.
Okay. And what type of experience? All right, you said it yourself. You were the first Black and the, second woman?
I was the second Black and the first woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but so there were already ceilings for you to press against, weren't there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't know anything really about the ceilings in at the railroad.
Right.
I knew nothing of railroading except Amtrak.
Right.
Passenger service.
Sure.
So I'm in my 20s. I'm brought into this position, as a trainee. I was a training program for 9 months, which took me to different cities in the South. While I was born in the segregated South in North Carolina,
Right.
I did not grow up there.
Right.
I went to a white university. So for me to get a job working for the Southern Railway and to do lots of travel in the South was somewhat of a challenge.
Sure. I mean, did you experience what kind of discrimination did you
Oh.
experience in the railroad at that point in time?
Okay, whatever discrimination I experienced then, I didn't really know that was happening.
Okay.
It wasn't until
Behind the scenes kind of stuff.
behind the scenes. I can tell you that we were new. The railroad at the time was new into getting computers to generate information.
Mm-hmm.
We had large file rooms with lots of paper files, and we had lots of folk to manage those files. But we were coming in with the computers. Well, I was decent at doing the computer work.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember the time when I had developed a program, I had put it all together, and then a young white lady was sent to work with me so I could show her so that she could travel to Atlanta and other offices to share that information. Until I said, no. If this is my system, this is my program, I will be traveling to do it.
Well, good for you. Did that work for you?
It did.
Wow. So you pushed back.
That and a lot of other things, yes.
And they paid attention.
I was good at pushing back. And so, yes, those things did work for me.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
All righty. So then what happened there? Well, let's walk it out. Keep on going.
Well, I can remember an assignment that I had. One of the things I talked about a few weeks ago was learning about urban renewal and learning about eminent domain. But a project that I had, I'm in my 20s, mid-20s, maybe I'm 25, 26 years old. I'm working in Washington. I was sent down to Greenwood, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
At Greenwood, at the time, for many, many, many years, the train went through the middle downtown Main Street of Greenwood.
As it did in a lot of those southern
a lot of
cities.
those cities. And of course, it's blocking the pedestrians, the ambulances, and everything. Well, the state of South Carolina, the community of the council in Greenwood, they all had meetings to discuss the relocation, the rerouting of the train around the city.
Okay.
So I go down. I'm just going down to take notes. I'm not in charge of anything.
Right.
I'm just going down to represent the Southern Railway and to take notes. Did that. We went to the meeting, great meeting, had lunch. And my salesman who picked me up at the airport, I don't remember what airport, Greenville, South Carolina airport. I don't remember. Well, he picked me up at the airport. He attended the meeting with me. After that, we're going to tour the area. I want to see the land, the property that because of eminent domain,
right,
the state and railroad were going to take these people's farmlands.
Right.
And so I had a camera, of course, no digital camera back then.
That's
just a point and click. And we were on the property, and I am definitely trespassing because we did not yet own this property. And I'm on the property, and there's the farmhouse. I look, the curtains part, and there's a rifle that's sticking out of the window.
Come on.
So as I turned to my salesman and said, "Is that a gun?" Well, he had run back to the car. He didn't say, "Cheryl, run, look out, be careful, duck."
Was he black or white?
White guy.
Okay.
So
he left you standing there.
And the passenger door was open.
Oh my gosh.
I ran around. I mean, he had gone around to the driver's side. I got in my car, closed the door, and we drove off. So that was a really good experience for me. Like I said, I'm in my 20s. Right. I don't know anything.
Oh my gosh.
Well, there were various things like that. As a part of the training program, though, back to the training program, I had to go to different cities, learn different departments, Atlanta, all kinds of rail yards and all that.
That's why in the end you do know railroading.
But I do know railroading.
You
okay, I certainly used to know railroading. I don't know what it's like now.
Well, we might add that you've been retired for 15 years.
I have been retired for 15 years.
But all of these memories are the things that we want to mine as a part of this program. Yes. So now you can keep on.
Good.
Keep on.
Well, I was there again in Washington for 9 years. The merger happened, and N&W, Norfolk and Western, merged with Southern Railway, and it became the Norfolk Southern Corporation.
Okay.
So it ain't the Norfolk and Southern, as many people say. It's the Norfolk Southern Corporation.
Right.
With that, I was relocated to Roanoke.
Okay.
Came here with a 15-month-old baby. Didn't know a soul, except for, of course, the few people who moved down to Roanoke with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember how, what, when, where I got a position of, my title was Product Manager Environmental Services. There were two of us. My boss, I don't know if I should say his name or not, but he and I were the team of two to manage and to develop markets for environmental services.
Okay.
Those markets were non-hazardous waste products. I don't remember what the revenue was for trash.
Okay, this
For
is
years.
trash that's generated by the.
By the city.
Okay,
by
fine.
Community.
Okay, so we're leading up to the trash train, maybe.
Okay, so
Okay.
I am we are the product manager of environmental services. We would develop business opportunities for the railroad
Okay. Oh,
to
I see.
handle the transportation
I gotcha.
of non-hazardous waste products.
All right.
That's residential waste, construction waste, sludge from wastewater treatment plants. And something I always like to say is fluff, which is automobile shredder residue, just things like that.
All right.
But supposedly non-hazardous.
So this was a way for the railroad to interlock itself with the community. In other words, offer services as well as make revenue for themselves, correct? But be
Correct.
a real service to the community. In other words, expand stuff that maybe hadn't been handled that way before. They were trucking it all out before. Is that how
Right.
it always went? Okay.
Being in the marketing department and being a product manager and developing marketing opportunities.
Okay.
Okay, let me just step aside for a second to say this. You're driving down, you're driving your car and the gate comes down, the railroad gate comes down, and there's a train that goes by.
Right.
Do you ever stop and think what is in those rail cars?
I do, but I'm not very good at figuring it out.
Absolutely. You know coal when you see it.
Sure. And I know cattle and
You know
turkeys.
cattle. Yes, when you see it. But there's so many of those box cars and hopper cars.
Right.
And gondola cars.
Correct.
You don't have a clue as to what's in there.
Right.
Those of us in marketing develop opportunities, work with customers, Domino's Sugar, Little Debbie Snack Cake, Coca-Cola,
I got
to
you.
develop business opportunities to transport their product on our railroad.
I got you.
We develop the pricing, the opportunities.
And you go to them.
we
You
put the
knock
deal
on.
together.
You knock on their door.
Or they knock on ours.
Okay, I understand. now.
One way or another.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, to this whole non-hazardous waste thing came about. We did not create that idea. The the Roanoke Valley Resource Authority was newly formed. I think that the landfill used to be on the other side of Vinton. I can't think of the name of it. The Resource Authority knew in the next few years, a new landfill site had to be developed. So the Resource Authority found that site for the landfill, which is at Smith Gap. You go down 81 South.
Okay.
You get off at the Aranto exit.
Yes.
You drive
Wow, that's
about
a ways.
5 miles up in there.
Wow.
Beautiful, mountainous, gorgeous site. And that's where the landfill was found to be developed, and that's where it still is.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
I heard that landfill was big enough to hold trash for 250 years.
That's a stretch.
Okay, fine. But it's
a lot of years.
It's very, very big.
It's very, very big.
And I heard that it was also, isn't it inside a solid rock enclosure? Is it that kind of deal or not?
It's in the gully. It's in the valley area
Right. Okay.
of Smith Gap. So yeah.
Okay.
It's enclosed.
Okay.
And as you load trash and waste over the year, it's covered.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you can layer it.
All right.
All right. So that site had been found.
Right. All right.
Well, how do you serve that site? How do you get trash from your neighborhoods down to Roanoke, Vinton, and Salem wasn't part of it at the time, but Roanoke County, Roanoke City, and Vinton was. How do you get trash? I mean, the trash truck that drives through your neighborhood,
Correct.
you really don't want them to have to drive
All that
30
way.
miles up the road.
No.
So the Resource Authority approached the railroad and they approached trucking companies.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to put together the best deal, the best opportunity, the best way to serve the landfill.
All right. You were bidding. Everybody worked up their bids.
Not only did we work up a bid for pricing, we had to develop the way to handle it.
Sure, you had to
The
have the
transportation
cars,
method,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
So that's how I got involved and my boss. And so for, I don't know, several weeks, a month or two, I don't remember, we sat down and put together the plan. I traveled to other cities to see how some of them were handling trash. I met with the law department. What's the legality of this?
Yeah.
The transportation department.
What a fascinating
How would you
job.
transport rail cars from wherever
Right.
to the landfill?
Right.
The engineering department. Let's design the rail cars to handle trash, to not affect the environment, and to get those rail cars up to the landfill. The finance department, are we willing to spend our money to assist in this project?
Right.
So I had to talk to all of these departments
Right.
to put the deal together. And we did. We put this deal together. We worked at it. The meeting was held at the Roanoke County Administration Building. Truckers came to present their proposal. The two of us presented our proposal.
Uh-huh.
Roanoke County and the Resource Authority accepted the proposal of the railroad.
So you spearheaded the trash train,
Yes.
so to speak.
So to speak.
And then they had, was it tricky laying the rails on out there? In other words, how did you, tell me about that.
Okay, so you have the railroad main line.
Right.
Okay, on the main, where you had to build a spur off of the main line to get to the landfill.
Okay, but you didn't cross over 81, so the main line was already on the other side of me. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So this is the other, when I mentioned earlier about eminent domain, there were people who lived there, who've lived there, families have lived there for 100 years.
Oh, wow.
They have their homes, their farms. No big farm, but it was their property.
Sure.
And we took a lot of that property to build that spur.
Wow.
Now, one of the things I talk about was there's a couple of times when I cried working for this railroad. So the proposal had been established. The courts had approved us, the railroad, taking some of that land. Well, and I remember talking to a family member. Oh, let me go back.
Yeah.
When we were at the Roanoke County Administration Building and our proposal was accepted, I went home. I called my brother. My brother was important in my life. He knew every detail. He knew all the work I was doing on this project. I called him. I said, Bob, they accepted our proposal. The railroad's going to handle this business. And I broke down and I cried.
Oh.
I cried and I cried. And my brother was yelling in the phone. What are you crying for? I thought this was a good thing. I said, I was just so overwhelmed that all the work.
The culmination of the whole
absolutely.
thing.
So anyway, all right, so back to the building of this construction of the track.
Yeah.
It was dynamiting.
Oh.
There was heavy equipment. You got to lay the earth and the stone and the rock and all that construction. And the people who lived there, I got phone calls.
I bet you did.
They had these people were given my number to be the contact person with the railroad if they had a problem. Now, some of those people had us in court. But it didn't matter because the construction had already begun. Right. The courts had already approved it.
Right.
But I can remember 2 phone calls that I got that said they went to the kitchen to turn on the water faucet.
Uh-oh.
Okay, one family, there was no water.
Oh.
They had wells. And the construction had damaged or destroyed the well.
Right.
This other family, you turn the water on, and it was brown, sludgy stuff coming out of the faucet. That was another time I cried.
Yeah. Something that you won't even think about when you're thinking about planning. It's just a consequence that can't be really predicted. You just don't know.
And I knew I wasn't responsible. I knew this wasn't my fault. But I was just saddened by the whole idea. And I remember telling people, just imagine one day you're sitting at home with your family or whatever, and you're going to knock on the door or a phone call or a certified letter in the mail. And they said, hey, look out your back window. And there's going to be bulldozers and construction equipment and all kinds of stuff. And we're going to take part of your property.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
That was a hard one.
Yeah.
And trash is going to be moving in your backyard for 30 years. And
who assumed the cost for buying that property? Okay. Who did that?
No, the property itself and the siting of that was the Resource Authority.
Okay.
Norfolk Southern, one of the things that when I talked about was that it was a team effort of this whole proposal that was put together. But our team effort convinced our management to spend $10 million to buy the rail cars and to build a track. And the Resource Authority are the ones who acquired the property and the landfill site and all that. And that was the initial cost of that was $30 million.
All right, but you had to help design those cars, didn't you?
Okay,
I mean,
the cars, yes, we knew that the cars had to be protected from the environment, that we knew they couldn't be open top cars.
Right.
You can imagine a coal car.
Right.
They're open top.
Right.
You see covered hoppers, they shape like tissue boxes or square rectangular boxes, but they're covered.
Right.
So, but how do you get the trash in there?
Do you open the bottoms of the floors?
At the transfer station, no. At the transfer station, that's probably where you went.
Yes.
when you dumped your whatever.
Yeah.
What we did was we put together the system that the rail cars were backed in.
Mm-hmm.
A crane came and lifted lids.
Oh, okay.
Up.
Okay.
Because the rail cars sat below the floor.
They do. So that bulldozers,
So
and just let me fill in a little bit
Go
from my
ahead.
end
Mhm.
because I have a moving company. So
Mhm.
when we cleaned out people's property
Mhm.
after they had moved, we went ahead and filled our car with the trash that we took to the transfer
Mhm.
station, and we would just shove it out onto the cement floor.
Right.
At that point, there were bulldozers at the ready to scrape it on in to the railroad car. That was the neatest system I had ever seen.
Yes.
And that system has been replaced 3 years ago and isn't even in place right now, right?
Not at the transfer station. The transfer station is still there, but they load into big trucks.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yes,
That's a system of emptying into
okay,
rail
to rail
cars.
cars. Yeah, that's gone away.
But my question to you now is, after we had pushed the trash in there and the
Yes.
railroad car goes away and heads
Correct.
towards the Oronto landfill,
Correct.
how did they empty the cars? Does the floor open up?
No.
Okay, well, how
No.
do they do that then?
If you look at a site, let's say at the piers on the coast, where you got all these hundreds of coal cars.
Yeah.
The coal cars are fit into a rotary dumper. And they're shoved into a rotary dumper, and that dumper lifts
Oh my
and
gosh.
empties the coal.
You know what? I had no idea. I've never
Okay.
seen that in my life.
Well, at the landfill, we had installed the largest rotary
Oh
dumper
my gosh.
ever
Oh my gosh.
at the landfill. So at the landfill, the same system of lifting the lids that we had
Uh-huh.
at the transfer station is at the landfill. The lids are lifted. The cars are fit into this rotary dumper,
Wow.
dumps the trash, and those similar bulldozers then scoop the trash and put them into the trucks
Right.
that go on the property that actually take to the landfill site.
Fascinating.
And then the lids are put down, shoved out the way, and then the next car comes in. So it's by a rotary dumper.
Well, I'll be.
And
What a neat system.
not only that, so, okay, let's talk more about what else is happening at the landfill.
Yeah,
Well, there's something that forms when it rains. So it rains on a landfill.
sure.
Where's all that sappy, yucky wastewater go to? Well, this system here at the landfill was, when they built the landfill itself,
Mm-hmm.
they had a drainage system put in.
Sure. Yeah.
And they layered with stone and with tarp
Mhm.
and whatever.
Help filter the stuff a little bit.
Okay, well, that leachate,
Uh-huh.
the runoff, the
Yes.
wetness, goes into a tank, a silo,
Oh.
which is then loaded into tank cars.
Oh, come on.
And those tank cars, so when the loaded rail cars went to the landfill, they disconnected the loads, picked up the empties, and picked up the loaded tank cars with the leachate.
Oh, and then where does it
And that
go?
comes back down to the transfer station site. And a special drainage sewer system was built
I'll be.
to offload the leachate that then took it, just like your wastewater when
Just
you flush it,
process it.
process it to the
I'll
wastewater
be.
treatment plant.
Isn't
So it's
that
a whole system
what a
that we
great
put together
system?
to handle trash in the Roanoke Valley.
How long did that system run? And once you got it going, what was its lifespan?
Not quite, I'm certain not 30 years. Let's say the early 90s is when it was all started.
Okay.
I think it ended 2022 maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't quote me on those dates.
Okay. That's
But-
fine.
but,
But that's
okay.
approximate.
Approximately. I would say more than 25 years.
Okay. So
So-
it went 25 years.
Yes, say.
And then a decision was made by
Mhm.
the railroad
Mhm.
that they didn't want to support that for cost-related reasons or whatever it was, correct?
I would say yes and no and maybe. But yeah, the railroads, apparently, I'm told, but again, I've been retired for 15 years. I was
Right.
not involved.
You know something? I'll tell you, Cheryl, if you'd still been sitting in that seat, that wouldn't have happened. We'd still have our trash train right now.
I believe
I'm telling you the truth. All heck
I
would
do
have broken
believe- I do
out.
believe
There
that.
is no way. And I am so sad because that sounds like the most efficient. And they had to make whatever
Absolutely.
decisions they made. But Roanoke lost on that one.
They did.
Roanoke lost out.
And before I made the speech to the a heritage group, I went to the transfer station. I met with a lady there.
Mhm.
I got a couple of brochures. I talked about the whole process of transitioning from rail to truck.
Right.
She said it was a major
Of course.
problem for them.
Yeah.
A costly, major problem. And without going
Well,
into
the
all
spur is
details.
still there, all that land, but I feel badly because those families' lives, they gave up property and it only ran for 25 years. And that
That's it.
is also
Yeah.
a sad thing.
It is.
Well, maybe we aren't done crying. Maybe maybe there's more crying to be done.
Well, I'm just happy that I was involved in I got a nice promotion from it.
Oh, it was
I went to other departments. I went to the agriculture department. I went to the chemicals department. And then I set my plan up to retire.
well,
So
I would say that you had a good career there.
I did.
And you saw lots of other
I did.
women come and go.
I did.
And
And young people.
and-
I did.
and you had a chance to, mentor,
I
I'm
did.
sure, to some people
I
that,
did.
may still be there. Right?
And they are.
Right?
One of my favorite stories is a young guy who was an intern,
Right.
Virginia Tech student.
Uh-huh.
He came, he worked, a young black guy. I taught him everything I knew about railroading, whatever.
Wow.
He graduated. I pushed the railroad hired him. He's now one of our vice presidents in Atlanta
Wow.
office.
That has got to make you
Yes,
feel really
yes.
good.
There's a couple of different folk.
No
who, yes.
kidding.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation.
Great.
If you were, I have to mention now, of course, Union Pacific bought Norfolk Southern.
It's in the works. They're just talking about Union Pacific buying Norfolk Southern.
Gosh, I thought for sure that had been,
No.
But at any rate,
Mhm.
that's in the works,
Yes.
and that will change a lot. It gives Union Pacific the right to the first east-west
Transcontinental.
transcontinental freight
Yes.
with one railroad line,
Yes.
and that would be a big deal.
Yes.
But all of the work that you did, you really helped build the reputation for Norfolk Southern.
I think so.
Sure, you did, so
Yeah.
that you helped keep them profitable,
Mhm.
and you worked all of that time.
I did.
We're going to end this little segment
fine.
here,
Mhm.
but I think we'll go ahead and create another segment with you because we haven't even begun to talk about, the culture and everything that that the railroad contributed to the
Yes.
Roanoke community. You weren't a
Gotcha.
native here, but you certainly have been here all this time. We're
Absolutely.
blessed to have you.
Thank you.
Actually, that was
Yes.
a real, I'm really, really glad
Mhm.
that you came and helped
Me
us
too.
the way you
Me
did.
too.
And you raised your family here, and
I
that's
did.
terrific.
I did.
Well, I just want to thank you very, very much for being with us
And
today.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll talk again. God bless you. Thank
Okay.
you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
This is going to be our last session with the Norfolk and Western Railway, Norfolk Southern African American Heritage Group. I'm excited because we're going to tie up our series for this Labor Day special. But I'm here with Darnell Wood and Mike Bowens and Clarence Turpin, and these are all members of the African Heritage Group. And we're just going to have some fun here because I have learned some stuff over the course of this few weeks that I've been interviewing and diving into the history of the railroad. And I want to talk about, again, as we sew this up, the importance of the railroad to Roanoke. It made Roanoke. As a matter of fact, what I didn't know was that Gainsborough was here before Roanoke was here. Before it was even before it was named Big Lick, and they were trying to decide where to come and where to set up their headquarters when these railroads were first getting together. And I found out too the extent to which we were so successful in Roanoke with the railroad that even during the Depression, in 1929, 1930, 1931, the employment never went down below 2% here in Roanoke because the railroad was so vibrant. At that point in time, the railroad was building 140 houses a year. There were, it went from 300 people to 3,000 people in no time at all. And so as a matter of fact, the banks back then, when people got paid for the railroad, the banks stayed open late on payday. They don't do that for anybody these days.
No, they don't.
And you had something to throw in there, didn't you, Darnell?
And you talk about banks. I remember when the railroad, prior to you getting paid, you could go to the commissary down at Schaefer's Crossing.
Yeah.
They had a commissary open. You can go in there and buy your groceries or anything. Then on payday, they'll keep a running tally. And on payday, you go back in there and pay them.
Oh, that was neat.
So you didn't even have to have money like work boots and work clothes and things like that. You go to the commissary down at Schaefer's Crossing, and the gentleman there had a store. You can go in there and buy anything you want to. And on payday, you just go in there and settle up your bill.
They picked Roanoke when they moved up here from Lynchburg, which is where they were way back in the day. And they were on some little island in the middle of the river, and they didn't have any place to expand. They had no place to set up the shops. They had no place to do what they wanted to do. And they picked this whole area, Schaefer's Crossing, because that gave them the room that they needed
Yes.
to bring in, the coal and everything else that they were doing. So, coal was the main reason here. And then they set up their East End shops.
And as we think back, and I'm glad you brought up the late 20s and early 30s, and be mindful at that point, there were not many blacks working with the railroad.
Okay.
So when you see those persons come in, they were mainly Caucasians at that time. And then later, blacks or African Americans started working with the railroad in those, I would say, labor-intensive jobs, working on the track and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And later they started working in the shops and things. And you mentioned East End shops as well. So early on, if you go back and look at the PBS documentary about Norfolk and Western Railway and how it was born, you go back and look at those. There's not many if any, African Americans in any of that video.
Really? Because in 1928, they had 5,000 employees here. And you're saying that even back then, at that time, you don't think there were many African Americans?
No.
Okay, well, you all know.
No.
And now, whatever the now, I mean, there's less than 1,400. I mean, there's just
In Roanoke.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is just a huge difference.
And something else too. You were talking about years back.
Right.
Okay, I can remember my uncles. They worked at the East End shop. Right. And what was said is in the summertime they worked in all the heat on the inside.
Oh wow.
And then in the wintertime, they would be like in the wheel shops outside. It would be a lot of work outside. Now, that was a lot of things that the African-American employees did. Maybe not all of them, but I can remember him talking about that. I can also remember my brother saying something about that. And he said that when they were hired, that they would hire at shops. And a lot of times they worked outside in the wintertime. And in the summertime, they would be inside. So, but, things changed over the years there, but that was one of the bigger, it was the biggest employer in Roanoke then.
That's correct. It was.
And if you were working, if you worked for Norfolk and Southern or Norfolk and Western back there then, you would, they would, people kind of looked up at you.
Sure.
They looked at you in a different way there. I don't mean nothing bad about it, but maybe it was a good way where you had a job and, because a lot of people that applied for the job never got it.
That's right. Well, they probably looked
and
at
that was back there a long time ago. Now that's way back there.
Well, I know that in the year 2000, there were 238 men in the shops still. Okay. Now we have to remember, and then it dropped in that 1 year. It dropped down to 16 because that's when they had it was 1999. There were some big changes. And that is probably the merger of N&W and Southern Railway was 1989, and so they were just repositioning themselves. But the East End shops had a global reputation for turning out the best
rail cars
and engines.
That's correct.
In the world. Right. I mean, the 611 still holds, the award for
because
being
a lot of
so
companies got them to build the cars for them. They were building the gondolas and the coal hoppers, as we call. And over the years, that changed there. Even the way the coal hoppers were being built there and the gondolas. And, I don't know so much about the box cars. I don't know whether they were built then, but a lot of the other railroads would get them to build stuff for them because we could see it happening going out of Roanoke. Now that's when I was working, and that's the line that I run down right down by the East End shops from out of Roanoke. So, and we could see the different names on the side of the cars.
Right.
That was and they were building something for another.
Well, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
I heard something else. I heard that those cars were so well balanced and so well engineered that even though a car would weigh, tens of thousands of pounds, two men could get behind a car and push it.
On a flat track,
on a flat track, because it was so.
Well, they were saying that the engineering was so it was so good. Far as the building part, I mean, and that's why they got them to do it here in Roanoke.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the reason. That may be some of the reason why Freight Car America moved here. They moved here because Freight Car America builds a lot of cars too. So
Yeah. Well,
that's another subject there. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
all right. Well, that's a real good point. Clarence, I want to bring you into this conversation a little bit because you have some good memories. You have good memories of your daggone desk. Here you worked in an office for 35 or more years. Tell me about where your desk came from.
It was there when I got there. I don't know how long I worked my way to that desk. And also, I just mentioned I had my chair. I still have my chair that I bought from the railroad when we made the move to the new building. They were getting rid of a lot of the furniture and stuff.
So you still have the desk that you work with now. That's the point. You
and
bought
my
it.
Chair
All
and
right.
a file cabinet. I'm gonna let you guys see it one day. But I do. I started off as a messenger in 1965. And
What did a messenger do?
anything that the treasurer wanted you to do.
You mean you just ran from office to office with?
I would go in and do anything he asked me to do, to pick up this, to go to the bank, to do whatever. Mainly the mail. Everything that we did in Treasury was time sensitive, especially in the mornings.
Huh.
So we would receive information from the banks in the mornings that we would have to process
Okay.
our payments through the rest of the day, and how we paid the banks for the vouchers that cleared overnight and everything. So I would do anything that the treasurer wanted me to do. Mainly went from office to office, payroll, accounting, delivering papers back and forth throughout the day
Okay.
as a messenger. Yeah.
All righty. But you didn't wind up as a messenger.
No, actually, I worked 11 jobs in the Treasury
No
Department.
kidding.
Yeah. Starting at the bottom as a messenger and moving on to the next job up the ladder, which was a voucher clerk, into a bookkeeping job, and to a cash reporting job, and then to a utility job that I had to work all 18 jobs in the office if someone was on vacation or out sick.
So that kept you really busy.
Most of the time it did. A lot of the time I had free time as a utility clerk because most of the time people were there.
I got you.
But I learned from the bottom up how everything in the department worked.
Alrighty. So how much did people, there still was a tremendous sense of teamwork, despite the fact that you might have been at a desk, somebody else might have been a conductor, somebody else might have worked in HR. That's the one thing that I've really realized after talking to all of you that we have talked to for this series, that there was a tremendous amount of loyalty and appreciation for the railroad and for doing a really, really good job. And that seems to be hard to find, in today's world. People, nobody stays in jobs anymore. Nobody stays there 35 or 40 years. Nobody's loyal, and they're just looking for, the quickest way out to the next job. I don't get that feeling from all of you people that spent all those devoted years.
It's, and it is amazing because most people that hire with the railroad know what it's about. Or they had family members. There was a lot of nepotism with the railroaders, especially in the operations department. I never forget a guy one time after I graduated college and was hired out as a brakeman through the railroad. He looked at me and says, "What? Darnell, you got a college education. Why you want to be out here?" But his son,
That's right.
his nephew, his brother, and 2 or 3 other people were out on the railroad. And I said, if it's so good for you all, why can't I do the same thing? And after I asked that question, he kind of stopped. But the railroad, the benefits aside, some of it, especially when you talk about out in the field, the jobs were tough. They weren't tough as far as working them. It was tough because you were gone from home so much. It's nothing for you to, you didn't have any off days like they do now. You back then, you could work 28 days in a row as a supervisor. I remember some of the management trainees coming to my office, and I said, now, this is not your regular everyday job. So I put out one of my work calendars, and I showed him. I said, count all the X's here. And I just want you to take a minute to count all the X's. He went and counted. He says 94 days. And I said, you know what those 94 days represent? He says, no, I said, that's 94 days I work without an off day.
Oh, come on.
And I said, that's what you're getting into. But if you want to do, if you like to work and you want to advance and things, that's what we had to do. And it was nothing to work 2 or 3 weeks in a row without a day off. And I'm not talking about 8-hour days. I'm talking about as a supervisor when I work, some of them 12, 14, 16 hours a day. And if you have a major incident, you could be out there 35, 40 hours with no break in at all. But then you get back to what has it done? It allowed me to retire early. I have a very good pension. People are kind of, they look at me and say, you got that kind of a pension. And then my wife has a pension as well, and she's never worked a day on the railroad. So that was another fringe benefit. Yeah. If you've been out there and you have a pension, your wife gets a pension of her own. It's separate from yours through the railroad benefits.
You got to be kidding. Even though she did never work in the
Never worked a day in her life.
And they gave her a pension?
She has a regular income, monthly income.
I have never heard of such a thing. Is that just because she was married to you, Darnell? Is that what it was?
I would like to say it was, but no. But I think
she got awarded a special award. Oh, you're Darnell's wife. Let me go ahead and let's do something different for you.
I think the unions got us that benefit.
That's right.
Okay. And I was a salary position, but the unions actually and all that came in a railroad retirement. And the thing is, we spend so much time out there. They figured, listen, they're spending a lot of times doing a great job in transportation or with a transportation company. And we know they make sacrifices to be out here. And somewhere they decided to reward our spouses with their own income.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, that no wonder you all were so loyal.
Yeah. The railroad was a very, very important part of the Roanoke Valley from day one. Norfolk and Western Railroad had great influence in the development of Roanoke, and people were proud to work for the railroad. Right. I don't care what area of employment you're in, and like Mike said, that because you work for the railroad, people felt like you had a little bit more benefits coming to you than most jobs in the valley, a little bit more salary coming to you than most jobs. And a lot of the jobs started off on the rail tracks, building the tracks. My wife's grandfather was a chef cook on the railroad. He went back and forth.
Really?
So those were positions, baggage carriers, handlers, and all of that. Were jobs that blacks moved into over time, but not right away. But they moved into those jobs over time.
You know, I never knew that they were calling Roanoke back at the turn of the 19th century, 1800s, at the end of they were calling it the Chicago of the South. Because it was growing so fast, directly related to the railroad, and Roanoke was growing so fast because Frederick Kimball created the union between the town and the railroad. He was president in 1881, right? And he was the first president. Yes. And it was growing so fast, they couldn't even, of course, they've got Kimball Avenue downtown, but they had to just start putting numbers on streets. Numbers and letters, because that's how fast it was growing. And but they were making lots available, a lot in Roanoke. When Roanoke was first chartered in 1882, it was $125 a lot. You'd get a 100-foot by 40-foot lot. And those lots are still marked out. Houses are still there today, and families are still in them. But the railroad started to, build those houses, and it really grew the city fast. What were you going to say?
The railroad, I would say that it's not for everybody. Now, the railroad, if you don't like nights and weekends and holidays and any time, being called, I'm speaking of road wise, being called any time of the night, and any kind of weather. And as I said, nights and weekends, you lose out on a lot of things that happens especially if you're a married person, you lose on a lot of things.
Yeah.
You can't be there for this. You can't be there for that.
You can't coach your kids, softball team because.
As I said before on that too, but you have to have the right person at home.
There you go.
I'm going to say that the right home life.
Right.
You got to have the right kind of home life.
So it really helped.
And we all know that. I mean,
traditionally, nuclear families, the dad was there,
That's
the
right.
mom was there, and that made a great, that structural support, that
That's
unity.
And even
made
your
it
kids
possible.
you even your kids see that too. They say, well, daddy got to go so-and-so. He got to do such and such. And then see, the wife would have to say, yeah, well, he's not going to be here for so-and-so and things like that. But as Donnell said, in the end, it pays off for the wife too, what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Far as getting her part of, I've heard guys say this, that a long time ago. I've heard them say, well, he's not going to do this, you're not going to do that, or you're going to get rid of this, get rid of that. I said, well, hey, I said, as long as your wife is still with you, she's going to get half of what, or they're going to keep on working. Haven't you heard that? You heard that? I've heard, and this is serious business. I've heard guys say, well, man, I'm not going to retire because I don't want my wife to get none of my pension.
Yeah.
Now, how does that look right there? She's took care of the family the whole time.
I know, I got you. It's an interesting thing now. There's some people, maybe they don't have to worry about it. Are you all at all concerned? We're talking about Union Pacific and the deal that's going to be worked over the next 2 years. Union Pacific, we might also mention that Union Pacific was now you're going to have coast-to-coast freight with one company, one railroad line. It's interesting that they were part of the kickoff of laying that 2,000 miles of track way back in the day. And now here they are making another big step as a major player. Does that mean that people now need to worry about their pensions? Do you think? Can they do it? Is there a reason to even lose sleep over this?
I don't lose sleep over it because I think the railroads have been so solvent all these years. The railroad retirement benefits are so invested. I don't think any of us are going to lose sleep over it. I'm not definitely going to lose sleep over it. If you did what you did supposed to do financially and do the right things and watch your money.
That's right.
And don't go out frivolously throwing it away and things of that nature. I can say I make more money retired than I did when I was working.
Yeah.
And when I retired at 57, people say, you got to be kidding me. I said, no, I make more money now than retired when I was working. And I get my increments, my increases every year. My health benefits are fairly well. I do pay for some supplemental. But then, like I say, my wife is still getting paid. Her benefits, since she's not 65, her benefits are still being paid by Norfolk Southern. And like I say, she never worked a day in her life at Norfolk Southern.
Isn't that amazing? Where's the railroad? You were talking about how solvent they are. And, God bless them. I'm glad they're solvent, because they were responsible for, helping make America and all of these great cities that they went into. Where are they getting their money now? They're still moving coal. They're still moving freight. But now you've got other things at play. You've got highway systems. You've got, air traffic now that they didn't have when they first started, right? Where do you think most of the money is coming from now, Darnell?
Most of the money is still coming from transportation of goods. But, railroads have diversed themselves as well. Right. They own a lot of property.
Investments.
Really?
In property. Every time, if you look at the many, and I'm talking about all railroads across the United States, I could only fathom how much property they own. And, then a lot of times you got these lease agreements where if I got an industry where I want to bring the railroad to and I want to put a switch in certain places, a company pretty much pays a railroad, put that switch in and run the track to them.
Yeah.
The railroads hardly don't pay anything for that.
A prime example is when the racetrack wanted the track moved, down at Martinsville. Down at Martinsville. They just think about that. Railroad property.
So that, you mean it wasn't railroad property that the railroad owned when they wanted to do that? I'll tell you one piece of property they don't own anymore. In 1979, they sold the Hotel Roanoke, the grand old lady, to Virginia Tech.
That's
what
right.
in the world do you think made them do that? Because that was still,
Investment.
I know it needed a lot of
It was costing
money.
too much to operate. It was a
But
financial
just think
decision.
of how much money there was. There was a lot of money involved in that too.
Yeah.
And that's just like not only that, but just think about the little short lines. And what I'm speaking of, people don't even realize this.
No,
that
they
the
don't.
railroad has got so many little short lines that might run 18 miles
Right.
or something like that, but they connect to a main line, and there may be some industries back in that area that need to be that they have to work, but the main far as Norfolk and Southern didn't want that little small stuff.
Right.
They had the little short line, but they had to meet with the big line to move the freight.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. And you know that, and that happens a lot.
And if you think about it, if you look at, we talked last one of our session, we talked about intermodal.
Yeah.
It was when you take that container off this ship and put it on. Just think if there were no train service or rail service, and you take a ship comes in here, has 1,000 containers on it, you don't have enough truck drivers to move 1,000 containers.
We're down 100,000 truck drivers or 300,000.
And then you take and put that on a rail. A rail car, and then we're talking. You mentioned earlier Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern merge, which I would think it will probably take place. It'll probably be signed 2 years down the road, and then you're putting seamless transportation from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast. And vice versa. Yeah. And I just see that in certain things you can't haul by a container. There's certain chemicals that they don't want on interstates. That only, you move them through these, and some of them do go through these major cities, but most of them going through rural land, in the countryside and things of that nature. So there's a lot of things involved with it, just like the trash train. They're always coming up with other ideas of how to make it more sufficient and efficient.
Yeah.
And economical.
Well, you were saying the trash train was a local thing. We all got excited about it here, but you all said they've been bringing trash in from Richmond, and even farther away, perhaps into where? Tell me that quick, because we've only got another minute.
Okay, now this is a branch line too. See, this was coming out of Richmond.
It made them a lot of money.
Made them a lot of money. They would bring the trash in the crew, and it couldn't sit there for so long, because people were complaining, and even those were. And they would just look like old gondolas there with just covers over top of them.
Right.
But you could smell it all the time there. But see, now that's, and when we talk about them little short lines, this railroad was picking up cars down on a little line like that. But it's making money, but you still got to bring it to a main line railroad, as we say. You got to bring it to a main line railroad. See, people didn't realize that. Go ahead.
Well, I hate this, but now we're at the end of our railroad line.
Okay.
We have run out of rail.
Okay.
And I just want to thank you, Darnell and Mike and Clarence, for being a part of all this and helping us celebrate and remember all of the incredible hard work and lives that were sacrificed in the sense of, they just sacrificed so much to make the railroad what it was and to benefit this community.
And thank you, because if it weren't for you, this story will probably not be told.
Well, it's going to be told and hopefully archived down at the Virginia Museum of Transportation, and it'll be online. But God bless everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Right.
You've been listening to Let's Talk About, courtesy of Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia, the only moving company with a consignment shop, auction house, and real estate division. We are a one-stop shop for any senior making a move. Check out our website at crowningtouchusa.com. Or if you are planning a move, call Anna at 540-982-5800 to arrange a free estimate. And don't forget to check out our monthly browse and bid auctions at 6712 Williamson Road in Roanoke, where you can bid online on over 1,800 items each month. Meanwhile, let's get back together next Friday at noon for more of Let's Talk About on Fox 910 and 104.3.